Only 4 players remain in Korea's annual Hunter exam. Everyone is eager to find out the results, but even more curious to know who Lee Han-sung is. Among this year's prodigies, there was no one by that name. With 855 points, candidate CN storms through the portal, furious, complaining about a mistake she made, and she's the daughter of high-rank Hunter parents no less. With 988 points, Jin-hoon walks out saying this year is harder than he expected. Everyone comments on how much he's improved. With 932 points, Sung-hyun comes out, takes one look at the ranking, sees he's not in the top spot, and slams his wand on the ground in rage. Whispers spread through the crowd that it's rare for a mage to score that high, but Sung is dying to know who this Han-sung is, a strange name no one has ever heard before. And now only 2 candidates are left. Here comes another one with 1021 points, the prodigy Han Buell, a member of one of Korea's 3 most powerful clans. He's confused by everyone's surprised reaction to his exit until he realizes they're stunned because there's still another person taking the test. The place falls silent, everyone desperate to know who this last kid is. Even though they're already sure Buell will be top of the year again, most people assume it must be a registration error. No way that kid is still in there. Then suddenly, someone walks through the portal. Han-sung, the absolute beast, with 1201 points, taking first place. Everyone's in shock. No one has ever scored that high on this test. The kid walks right past without saying a word to anyone while the crowd parts to make way. The moment the protagonist is out of sight, the place erupts into chaos. Everyone wants to know who this kid is, how this is even possible, and what his stats are. What they don't know is that Han-sung actually only has one good stat, luck 99. That's because he's trapped in this world and can't log out. In theory, that shouldn't be so bad since he was the top player for a long time, until he noticed his stats were literal garbage. Since the game had just started and he was level 1, he decided to try a forbidden strategy, re-rolling. He kept restarting the game over and over, hundreds of times, until finally, after a whole month of re-rolls, he got exactly what he wanted. All stats low but luck maxed at 99. The good part, every reward gets buffed, so much so that when he opened the starter pack, he pulled the skill Magic Rule. Rank F upgraded to SSS. The bad part, he's absurdly weak, so he does what any lucky person would do. He heads straight to the casino. Literal 200 IQ. On the very first machine he tests his 99 luck on, jackpot hits dead center. With the winnings, he goes on a shopping spree for tons of items, because the very next day was his arrival at the Hunter Academy, the big ranking exam. The kid keeps a low profile and avoids drawing attention as much as possible until the inevitable competition happens, and that's how the beast walked into the portal, armed with potions and the skill he scored through sheer luck. For just an entrance exam, the test was absurdly difficult. You had to keep farming until you literally couldn't climb any higher. The first goblins were easy, but the instant he killed one, a specter spawned. With the sword he bought using his casino winnings and his mana rule skill, he channels his energy into the blade, and after struggling to dodge the creature's attacks, he finishes it off. Problem is, right after that, a Cyclops showed up. The thing was terrifying, but we already know how this ends. He walked out as the rank 1, leaving everyone speechless. But now he's in trouble, because the entire academy hates him. Right after the test, rank 2 Bile and rank 3 Hoon meet up and start talking about investigating the kid, and these bastards are already plotting to kill him. Meanwhile, clueless Han-sung is wandering around the academy without a care in the world, or almost without a care, because the poor guy is being called hideous by every woman he passes. That's the problem with only having 3 points in charm. The attention earned him recognition points he could buy loot boxes with, but he prioritized improving his strength first. Besides calling him ugly, his classmates call him crazy for shaking his head like that. The teacher walks in breast first, and introduces herself as Mage Lee. MC remembers she excels in fire magic. Shut up, bro, and let us see more of her. The class starts and magic is like quantum physics to Jin, but Han explains how it's simple as putting a puzzle, and of course it's simple to him, because he comes from the family of wizards, and MC uses his info view skill to check Jin's stats, and is amazed at how strong he is. He spots another student, Yen Charles, and remembers how no one cared about her in-game until they found out that raising her relationship level rewards treasure-grade items. It's break time, and my G's eyes are glued on Yen Charles. She goes to buy a snack, but her smartwatch is out of battery so she can't pay. And who even uses coins in the Big 26? Hop, our loser, swoops in to pay, asking her to pick a drink. But Yen Charles is in disbelief that he approached her. She says how he's infamous in the school, and refuses to get a drink from him, but accidentally clicks the drink button. But Lee doesn't mind, and gives her drink. This gesture makes her blush, and Lee leaves waving her goodbye. He wonders if his first impression was fine, and figures how he can win her over slowly. Back to class. MC's practicing simple magic but is having a tough time because his magic stat is also low. If he does this motion a literal billion times, he will be able to unlock both magic and strength, exclusive skills. But he's already sweating after a couple of minutes of doing it. The teacher calls his name, saying how he's not focused on the class, and asks him to solve the problem on the blackboard. He walks forward and looks at the problem, does the math in his head, starts writing, leaving the teacher and students stunned that a loser like him solved it. She tells him to go back to his seat while other classmates wonder how he's good both with magic and sword. This little fiasco got him more recognition points. The class ends, and we see Bro pumping weights in the gym, hoping not to come across Jin-hoon. Magic students hate physical exercise, which means I'm a magic student. Then, he recognizes these two, Gil and Julia Martin, and her father is an owner of a private military. She spots the MC, and this makes Gil instantly jealous, which of course makes Julia want to recruit Lee immediately. These words send shivers down his spine, but she tells Gil how she's just teasing him, because Lee isn't a good magician after all. Lee remembers how Gil later led a group called Black Rose, consisting of the strongest magical heroes. He keeps pumping the weights, and thanks to his acceleration potion is able to get his stats up quickly. Hold up, this means he's not natty? Knowing the upcoming test will be difficult, he must level up his physical strength as much as possible. Now back to some good old gambling. Lee's looking for that baldy Gramps, in hopes to get that bracelet from him. That hairline is hard to miss, and Lee sits right next to him. He kind of feels bad for the guy because Lee's basically cheating with his invisible drone and extraordinary luck stat. He goes all in, but seeing Seong sitting next to him sends Lee into panic mode. Did I say I'd simp hard for this girl? She teases him for coming to the casino, but bro's sweating bullets because she comes from the family of assassins like Killua. She asks if he's any good at poker, and bro smirks how she'll soon find out, and this makes her burst out laughing, because she didn't expect that response. He's glad she didn't get offended, and she yells for the dealer to start the game. The dealer shuffles the cards, with Lee planning to win money from other players and let Vicky Raymond win, which will keep Baldy playing for longer. He asks Seong why her chip count is that low, and the assassin part of her blood stares back, spooking the MC, but she explains how she lost all her money to that bald guy. Lee decides to help her win some money back and thus gain her as an ally. Suddenly he gets terrified to the bone, not because of the game, but because he saw that guy walking in. His name is Vento, and he's a member of an evil group named Night Banquet. Vento's dark aura farming, and Lee gets a side quest to survive the night, or die. He knows this is no joke now and decides to run away but can't see anything. He decides to use his drone for optics, and it actually works. Even someone as strong as Sung Sion is blinded, with Vento's thugs already turning this casino into the United Kingdom. Lee can't believe people are actually being killed around him. He grabs the girl's hand, pulling her with him as they make a run for it. He remembers how that bracelet item could be useful now, but then stumbles in front of one of the thugs. He sees them and is happy to take on Truck Kun's role, so Lee tells Sung Sion to hide. She says how she'll help him when her sight is back, and Lee's surprised with how calm she is right now. AliExpress Joker is ready to attack, sending fire and lightning magic at Lee, and is quite strong despite being a low level. But Lee spots an opening and casts his magic rule spell, negating the thug's magic circles, so bro summons 2 more around his wrists. Lee knows this is body enhancement magic, which means they're about to have a bar fight. Lee squashes the spell in his palm, releasing an energy wave which sends the bad guy flying. This knocks the guy out, almost knocking Lee out too, because he used way too much mana just now. Seong catches him before he falls, asking if he's fine, but bro responds how he needs the barbarian bracelet. She actually presents it to him, saying how she got it for him, and he wonders how she knew. She says she noticed he never looked away from it while playing poker, and gives it to him as thanks for saving her life. He grabs his barbarian sword that will activate the set effect, and just in time as 2 more thugs find them. Lee's confident in their chances now. Seong suggests they each take a thug, dismissing his concern by noting her rank 8 status significantly surpasses his rank 500. Seong uses her ability, becomes Muck from Pokemon, and appears behind one of the thugs, stabbing him in the shoulder. And while she's doing all of this, RG's still standing there getting mentally prepared. He becomes an emo, but this is actually a condition to activate his set, with his blood getting sucked in by the bracelet. Pinkish aura surges out of him, which gives multiple buffs like attack, stamina, and strength increases. The buff lasts 3 minutes, so he quickly dashes to the other thug who manages to dodge Lee's attack. Their swords clash, but Lee doesn't stop spamming attacks relentlessly. He's surprised that the guy is holding his own, and Lee knows that he's cooked after the buff expires. He quickly opens up the system store and buys light beads from it. The thug doesn't respect the anime rules and keeps attacking, and Lee yells for his classmate to close her eyes. He uses a blinding light spell, which does what the name says, but using this spell gained him the attention of the main villain Ventu too. This gives him some recognition points too, but they'll be kinda useless if he's dead. Ventu appears in front of him just in time when Lee's buff expired too. However, Seong is sneaking behind Ventu, but Lee knows this is a huge mistake. He can't even warn her because that would let Ventu know about her. Ventu gets closer to Lee, pulling out his thin but long sword at Lee's neck. All of this happened so fast that he didn't even see any of it. Vento scoffs and sheathes his sword back, saying how unfortunately he's gotta go, and slowly begins to vanish in hopes that Lee will be stronger next time they meet. The security rushes in, and Lee can't believe he did it. He completed the side quest, earning more recognition points and some stat increases too. Later in Seong's room, she's making me even more weak for her. She keeps thinking about Lee Hansang but doesn't understand why. Maybe because he saved her, or maybe because he didn't even flinch when Vento attacked him. Not being able to get him out of her mind makes her blush hard, to the point that she grabs her dagger and shows us her bakery. She throws the dagger, stabbing a poor pillow, and decides that killing Lee would make her stop thinking about him. She decides she should assassinate him when he least expects it. That concludes it. He is her target starting today. And I know what you're thinking, but I'm still simping. I like them crazy. The following day, Lee checks his status window and decides to buy some more loot boxes too. He opens one quickly and gets a soul rank assistant AI Halen. He's never seen soul rank before, but remembers how it's an unclassified item rarity. Soul ranks are made when a soul isn't able to leave this world. Then it becomes a relic, so that's why they're not classified with the standard methods. He wonders if he's going to be able to use this highest rank AI assistant. It also levels up with its owner, but checking its description he sees some redacted parts and wonders if it's a bug. He tries using his info view skill on it, but it's too low and this makes him wonder how powerful this soul actually is. He decides to put this AI into his drone, and when they merge, his drone introduces itself as Halen. The drone tells him the functions it can do for now, and hearing a shield function makes the MC curious. The shield doesn't require any mana, which is really good. The scene shifts to a guy sword training, and he gets interrupted by the MC applauding him. This guy's name is Sir J, and Lee introduces himself as a big fan. Lee's glad this game auto-translates languages, because no way he'd ever understand Russian. Lee compliments Sir J's sword skills, explaining how his sword skills are still a bit low, so that's why he'd like to learn from Sir J. But Sir J asks for Lee to show him his skills first, and Lee's bait worked, meaning he just made a new friend. They decide to spar. Sir J attacks but Lee blocks, pushing Sir J's sword down, and winning this sparring will increase his reputation with Sir J. The Russian guy steps back and Lee's able to read him like a book and can't wait for them to become very good friends. Sir J can't believe that he lost to Lee, especially since his physical strength is higher, which means Lee's skills were levels above his and it felt like he's facing an endless wall. His thoughts get interrupted by Lee asking him if he'd like to know why he lost. The reason is the swordsmanship experience, literally quoting Sir J from the game. Despite being the same age, Lee's experience is higher, but he knows that in a couple of years when Sir J levels up, he won't stand a chance versus him. He tells Sir J how he spent years on the battlefield, shocking him with that statement and then saying goodbye. The following day, Sung Seon is stilting around, spying on Lee. She again wonders why she's attracted to a loser like him, but just saying this in her mind makes her blush. Suddenly Han Bo-yul walks by, who tells her she's doing an awful job of spying on Lee. She wonders if he's here for the same reason. Lee keeps sparring with Sir J, and she can tell the skill difference between the two of them. Even Han Bo-yul acknowledges Lee's skills, but neither of the two are happy about it. Back to sparring, or better, Lee whopping Sir J's ass. Han Bo-yul is noticing Lee's mana usage while sword fighting, and realizes that Lee is more dangerous than he thought. The girl says how Lee's sword skills are more refined compared to his raw power, and Han Bo-yul asks if she knows him well, which she denies, and Han knows she's got a bad personality, even threatening other students with their life if she feels like it. Their chat is interrupted by Lee's and Sergei's convo, and Han Bo-yul again thinks how he couldn't find anything about Lee's past, but hearing how Lee spent a lot of time on the battlefield spooks him out. The girl says how it's been so long since the last war between humans, and Han responds that the only wars they fight now are versus monsters on the continent known as the Dark Land. This surprises her as she wonders if Lee is a war orphan from the Dark Land, a continent so dangerous that even after going through all kinds of training, her parents forbade her to go there. Realizing Lee survived this place makes her fall for him even more, but then gets mad again for it because this is not how Sondra is supposed to act. Later that day, Lee checks his system, and sees he gained 1,400 points because he's becoming more popular. His drone flies over saying the footage he's been recording since he got here is ready, so MC sits back trying to upload it on our YouTube, but of course he can't connect to our internet from a video game, but decides to upload the video on this world's version of YouTube, which would at least farm him some easy recognition points. The scene shifts to a portal in the suburbs of Gangwon-do, monster habitat, where they will take their next practical exam. This time they have to fight monsters in a public space, so everyone can see the skills of other classmates. The test starts with the elite students dispatching the trolls easily and eyeballing our guy from all sides. A loud screech echoes with a huge-ass ogre appearing behind the trees. Did I say an ogre? I take that back. An army of them. The students are terrified and run away to the teleporter, but it is not working. Lee gets a new side quest to stop 3 ogres with the classmates and wait for the teachers to handle the rest, but he knows the teachers are just B rank, so even they might not be enough. Jin-hoon decides to join the fight, with Han Bo-yul saying how he'll escape if it gets too dangerous. Lee doesn't want anyone to die here, so he joins the fight. Song Seon says how she's an assassin, so she's no good with big monsters, but she'll join too. Lee sends his drones to scout and Jin-hoon rushes in, followed by Lee and Seon. Jin jumps and slams the ogre in the back of the head, then Han Bo-yul staggers it with magic and the ogre falls down. Seon uses this chance to slice its ankle with Jin Seon, using his magic to summon ice spikes, slamming them into the ogre and dealing the final blow. The ogre refuses to die though, but a huge fire pillar hits its neck, finally killing the monster. They look back and see that MC's the one who cast that spell, and Lee realizes he might have overdone it, with Han Bo-yul and Jin Seon growing even more weary of him. He tells them how they gotta keep fighting, and after they leave, he opens the shop to buy an item to help him with this fight. He gets a skill cube and activates it immediately. The scene shifts to a top 10 guild in Korea, and they get an urgent request from the academy. The leader of this group, Han Sang-gyun, sends a rescue team to help the students and hopes they can hold on for 7 minutes until the rescue team arrives. He sees the 4 students who already made a move, but a woman walking in corrects him, saying it's 5 students. She's Song Ayun, chief of the Special Attack Force, and also the older sister of Son Xian. Ayun, Xian, props to parents for original names. She doesn't understand why her sister joined the fight. Xian prefers duels, plus she has no righteous conscience to save others. Han Sang-gyun tries calming her down, but she just shoos him off. They are amazed at the skills of some students, but there's one student they've never heard of before. Plus he can use quad casting as a freshman, and both of the agents find him outstanding. This makes the guy optimistic that they'll be able to hold on. They see Lee's about to use a skill cube, which should be impossible for someone of his level. But after he does it and leaves them speechless with the skill he got, she comments how they gotta recruit him ASAP. Han Sang-gyun doesn't think he'll accept, having such an amazing skill. Back to the battlefield, Lee takes out his sword and slices another ogre's neck, and is glad he got a power and speed increase from the skill cube. A bit later, another ogre falls down, and with this, one side quest is complete. Lee immediately opened the potion loot box from the quest and lucky as ever got 2 excellent consumables. One power-up boosts his charm stat, making him weep with joy at the thought of not constantly being called hideous. The drone lets him know that the video of him sparring with Sergei is popping off, and all these things make Rob optimistic for his future in this world. The scene shifts to the Dark Land where even the sun doesn't shine anymore, and monsters are so strong that humans need to sell their souls to gain power to beat them. A teacher is giving a lecture about this place, and one of the students asks to whom they sell their souls. She explains that they do it to God-class beings, a being heroes can sign contracts with too. But the teacher explains how signing a contract and selling a soul is completely different. As heroes' ranks improve, they can have contact with God-class beings, but even with such a contract you can't survive the Dark Land. They watch a video of a guy fighting the demons and getting slain, with the teacher explaining how they have to be mentally prepared if they ever go to that place. Lee isn't fazed by this grim reality, since he spent years in that place while playing the game, and thinks how if other students want to become heroes they'll have to be able to deal with this. Seeing a girl looking at him makes bro look away awkwardly, trying to avoid eye contact. Later in the cafeteria, Lee rests, thinking about all the stuff he's got to do. He sees Yen Charles and invites her to sit with him, and she does, but still feels awkward around him. He offers her hot chocolate, which makes her face shine, and they talk about the dungeon he'd like her to do. How I wish my name was Dungeon. He says how they're not doing an ordinary dungeon, but actually a hidden dungeon, which completely shocks her. He explains how both of them will benefit from this dungeon, because there are skill cubes in that dungeon and they can split the loot. She asks if it's realistic to expect them to clear the dungeon, but like a jealous ex, Sion appears saying she's coming with. Lee asks why she's here, and she nonchalantly says how she came to the cafeteria to rest. Why else? Lee finds this hard to believe, but doesn't want to get killed by her if he pisses her off, and politely asks her to leave, since he's busy talking to Charles now. She whispers that she should kill him, but then waves it off saying how she's out of here. Lee and Charles continue their convo with her. What happens if both of them want the same skill cube? He says they'll compromise if it comes to that, and one more question she has is if the dungeon is easy enough for him to do it solo if needed. He says how it's an easy dungeon for solo clearing, but it would take forever to do so. Seon tries to push herself in one more time, and Lee's not too sure about this but thinks having her as an ally is a good thing. Plus he only needs one certain cube from the dungeon. He agrees and hands them a contract, which is a secret oath contract, basically like an NDA. We now see Han Bull as he remembers Lee's stoicism during the Darkland lecture, and wonders if Lee really is an orphan from that land. If that's true, he could be a child of Darkland monsters too, which is like a ticking bomb. If he ever steps foot in the Darkland or an evil spirit from it comes to the mainland, it could all go to hell. He's afraid Lee could reawaken the forgotten memories of Jin Hoon, and decides to stop Lee before that happens. Back to the magic NDA, which you can't break even if you want to, because if you try to do so, it will wipe your memory. With this, Lee will tell these two girls a bit more about his power, but not everything, of course. He tells Charles about her unique ability, and when Seon asks about her special power, Lee checks her status window and sees a skill called fast thinking. She's ecstatic to hear about it, while Charles is just deep in thought. She asks what they need to do now, and Lee tells them he needs their help in stopping the end of the world. Well, he imagines himself telling them this, but in reality asks them to join his management company. And Charles asks if his company supports hero activity, which he confirms. The girls considered his offer for a moment, and Lee believes even refusal is okay, provided they keep strengthening their friendship. Just then Seon says she'll join, with Charles hesitantly agreeing too. Lee says how it's like helping a friend, and being friend-zoned was not on Seon's list today. They start strategizing their dungeon raid, and later that day Lee heads to train with Sergei. Lee's happy Sergei's not mad after getting his ass whopped the last time. And just before they start their sparring, Lee's drones get knocked down, with a new baddie called Nadia joining them now. Lee remembers her from the game too, and knows she's a daughter of a big shot. Lee summons another drone and gets it close into her face, which annoys her as she tries pushing it away. The drone dodges and whizzes around her, which is making her even more mad. He approaches her and aura farms with his height, even calling her noisy and telling her to shut it. Robert just dominated her like that, and even she can't believe that happened. But Lee remembers that in-game, despite being a bad personality character, she was easily dominated by her superiors in skill, and is a masochist on top of that. She's either holding back tears or squirting all over the place. Lee then touches her forehead, getting in her face and asking how dare she touch his drones. The girl is legit burning right now as she slaps his hand off, but he just puts it back, making her feel all kinds of tingly in her tummy. She tries hitting him with her stick, but he preemptively blocks it, even calling her a dum-dum for trying to hit him just now. This is making her wet all over the face, and somewhere else probably, and without giving her a chance to gather her thoughts, he asks about her father, even shocking Sergei at this point. Before she gets the chance to respond, he gets even closer to her face and whispers something in her ear about the Dark Land. This changes her expression to a blank one, while Lee casually looks back at Sergei and says how he's gotta go now. Nadia falls on her knees as we see a shadowy figure up top spying on this whole thing. The shady figure leaves but is chased by Sion in her Muka form, and she appears in front of him asking why he's spying on Lee. It's Hanbul, and he says how he wants to find out if Lee is the child of the Dark Land, and Sion asks what if he is. Bill feels her murderous aura as she's ready to pull out her knife, but he responds back with an ominous aura of his own, telling her it's none of her business, which actually makes her back off and leave. That night, in Lee's room, he worries about Nadia's dad making a move on him if Nadia tells him about today. He tells Halen to play his old vlog from the real world, where he talks about his sister, and watching this makes him feel nostalgic and sad. He slaps the senses back into himself, and goes for a stroll. He goes to a cafe, orders an Americano with 5 shots, and continues his stroll. He takes a sip, and of course it's bitter, just like his life now too. Someone approaches from behind, startling him a bit, but he's glad when he sees it's Henna. He asks her to not creep up on him in her shadow form, but she just ignores him completely, so he offers her a sip of his coffee. Then she goes for a sip and almost pukes how disgusting it is, and he tells it's an Americano with 5 shots. He teases her about how she can't finish a cup of coffee, and the reverse psychology works like a charm on her, as she yells back how she didn't drink all of it because it's Lee's coffee. He tells her to drink it all then, and she starts chugging it, keeping the puke in but uttering how it's delicious. He takes the cup back, goes for a sip and asks what she's doing here. This makes her blush, but she says how she wants to talk about her unawakened skill, and Lee reminds her how he'll tell her more about it when they go to the hidden dungeon. She then blushes again while asking him if he'd like to do some assassination quest with her, and bro can't believe she's just asked him this. She teases him saying how they can try hard ones if he doesn't like the easy ones, but just killing monsters makes him shudder, let alone humans. She then remembers the murderous aura in Baiwul's eyes, and decides to stop him from killing Lee. Not because she wants him alive, but because she wants to be the one that kills him. Ah, so romantic. She asks him again, but he straight up refuses, saying he's too busy, and she responds back how this is how she wants to repay him for helping her unlock her unawakened skill. Bro tries to figure out what the hell is she on about, but then seeing her blushing face he figures she's asking him to do something she likes together with her. This is basically like she's asking him out on a date. He musters up the courage and agrees, which makes her really happy, creeping him out even more. She keeps yapping about the assassinations as they hang out deep in the night. The following day, they learn about dungeons in their class, and he remembers how he used to clear them easily while live streaming. The teacher gives them an assignment, and while other students struggle with solving it, Lee's done in an instant. Charles, Hyan, and even Sion try to cheat by copying his work, but he decides to teach them all instead. Other students seeing this also get interested, which raises Lee's recognition points more. He draws a magic circle while explaining how it works, and once he's done, a bird made of mana spawns from it. Doing this impresses the classmates even more, and raises his recognition points even more. He thinks that if he perfects this technique, he'll be able to create magic AI. Later that day, he goes to the gym to train and sees both Sergei and Nadia there. He approaches her, and in a dominant fashion tells her to get lost. This makes her blush and shake again, and Lee figures how he's probably safe from her father for now since he's not done anything to him yet. He takes Sergei away so the two of them can spar. Jin-hoon is in front of the gym and is taken aback from the sheer energy coming from this gym. He goes in to see what's going on, and seeing Lee and Sergei spar makes him wonder how Lee is keeping his own versus Sergei, who's the best swordsmanship student in the entire school. Even though Lee's smaller in build, his technique is otherworldly, and this makes Jin-hoon excited to spar with Lee. Even if he lost, they would fight again. A couple of swings later, Lee breaks Sergei's wooden sword again. Sergei is improving so fast that Lee almost faints after their sparring. Suddenly he hears Jin-hoon yelling his name, slamming down Captain America style. Lee is shocked to see him, but in an all-might voice Jin-hoon challenges Lee to a duel, and keeps screaming duel, 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 like a madman. Lee knows that a single punch from Jin-hoon would literally kill him, so he runs away like a little bitch claiming he's tired. That night, Lee and his little harem are in the library, where the entrance to the hidden dungeon is. Lee clicks a book which causes a dungeon entrance portal to open in front of them. Sion tries to go in but Lee stops her, and uses his buff spell on her to awaken her fast-thinking skill. He does it to Charles as well, and both of them almost go Super Saiyan Blue. Now it's time, and Lee takes the first step through the portal. As they enter the dungeon, Lee casts an illumination spell to light up the corridor. They're in a sewer, a place that was used as a monster shelter before. Lee lays out their plan, where the girls fight and he will act as a scout with his drones. Bro strikes the gayest pose in the universe, and the girls aren't amused by it either. He thinks of clickbait titles when he uploads this as a video. And yeah, girls are still cringing at him. Charles asks if it's okay to upload a hidden dungeon online, but Lee doesn't mind since they're gonna loot it entirely. However, the dungeon difficulty increased, and hearing screeches from the dark is never a good feeling. Lee grabs his sword as D-rank specters attack. He uses magic since physical damage is useless. Charles casts her lightning spell that suddenly looks like water. Now it's lightning coming out of the water? Nice drawing, author. Seong goes in on Lee's command, with Charles casting more of her lightning magic from the back. She enchants their melee weapons so they can hurt the specters, which works like a charm as they finish them off. Lee yells how they need to keep one specter alive. As a huge horde spawns, the girls are worried. And Charles asks why, with Lee responding how he's got a plan. Seon is skeptical about this, thinking Lee is way too calm, though Bro's exhausted face tells a different story. Even if the monster is weak, if they swarm them it's going to be a tough battle. After a while, they do manage to beat them all, with a bunch of mana stones dropping. Seon asks Lee what he wants to do with the last specter, and he casts a magic circle on the ground, then 2 more, putting a specter in one of them, then channels for a moment, which traps the specter in the cube. This gets him a low-grade darkness attribute stone. Seon asks what the hell is that, and Lee asks for her dagger to show her. She hands it to him, and he merges the dagger with the cube, giving the weapon a shadow affinity. He hands it back, but Seon still doesn't understand. But as soon as he grips the handle, she feels the dagger is different. She gives it a couple of swings, and is amazed at how much stronger the dagger is now. A notification lets Lee know how Seon's favorability increased a lot, and seeing it's over 70 now makes Bro sweat like a rain cloud, considering how just recently she hated his guts. He decides to check his favorability with Charles too, and seeing it's only 31 breaks his heart, because a blonde baddie is not into him. They keep clearing the dungeon, and Lee's happy with all the videos he's recorded too, with Selen being happy about her upgraded dagger as well. She gives a big smile as a thanks to Lee, and he remembers how whenever he saw her in the video game, she was always killing someone with a cold expression. This creeps him out because he doesn't understand why such a cold-blooded murderer is into him. They proceed down the dungeon and finally reach the boss room. Charles and Selen ask for a break and Lee agrees since the dungeon difficulty is higher than expected. He summons a small army of potions, leaving both girls in disbelief over why he has so many. Better safe than sorry, he says, and Selen wonders where he gets the money for all the potions. She wonders if his dad is Jeff Bezos or what, and Bro's panicking hard trying not to reveal his maxed out luck stat. He shifts the subject to the dungeon boss, noting it's probably an A or B rank ghoul. He tells them to drink a buffer potion, and Lee opens the door to the boss room, seeing a single loner ghoul in the dark. He takes out his sword and just a single gaze from the ghoul scares Lee. He yells for them to dodge as a huge hole appears on the ground caused by the ghoul's attack. Lee's worried because Charles can't even track the ghoul's high-speed attacks, but what's even worse is that this monster's got one of the highest level abilities called Space Control. It's an S-rank ability, so this is going to be fun. After just a few moments of combat, Simile Yon is already exhausted, but the ghoul's cardio feels infinite. It sends more Space Control attacks and she keeps dodging barely, while Lee thinks how even her shadow back attack didn't work against the monster. Charles is just outranging it since she can't avoid its attacks, and his thoughts get interrupted by another attack, almost decapitating him. Lee figures that the monster cannot attack 2 people at the same time and thinks how if all of them attack together they might slay it. Of course he checks if the drone is recording. Hopefully he doesn't find a dead body in a Japanese forest. He opens the store, buys some magic and stamina buffs, uses them immediately, and yeah, the natty talk is definitely out the window. He takes an obligatory thumbnail photo and tries to come up with a clickbait thumbnail. Lee's nickname in real life was attention-seeking horror. He uses a drone shield to block and slurps those IVs like they're slurp juice, which skyrockets his power as he dashes super fast, landing a clean hit on the ghoul's neck. The ghoul tries attacking back but doesn't know the famous Omae Wamo Shinderu, quote, because it actually is already dead in both ways. The strain Lee puts on his body takes effect, and he just faints. The girls run in to check up on him as he comments how he's about to die, but the girls tell him to relax and just rest. The notifications keep popping up about all the rewards he's gotten for defeating this monster, and he inspects the cube first. He asks if the girls are okay with him looting the blue one for himself. Bro is cheeky, since he knows the blue one is an S-rank 1 with the ghoul's space manipulation skill. They sort out the rest of the loot and can't believe how much they've gotten. But Lee wonders why the dungeon is still active even after they defeat the boss, but then decides to loot every single stone block from it that could make him money. He's resting in his room later, because he almost died from overdoing it in the dungeon. He checks the videos the drone recorded of them and remembers how in his previous life he'd have an army of editors doing this work for him. The last video he posted of the ogre attack got him 1200 recognition points, and the girls also hit him up to go out tomorrow to split loot. He's also worried about the sudden difficulty spike but thinks it's thanks to his high luck stat they got out unscathed. He then thinks about the people who could pose a threat to him, and suddenly remembers that one guy. He needs to get a black card to deal with him, which is an ID card issued by the government. The scene shifts to Gil Sung-hyun, who's annoyed that on top of Jin-hoon and Hanbyul he's got Lee to deal with now. He doesn't understand how he can use both magic and swords so well, and has no idea where the hell he comes from. Julia Martin pops by asking what's grinding his gears, and dude's not too thrilled seeing her. She says she knows what's troubling him and offers her help. But first she teases his magic circle for being weak. She explains how even Lee's magic has its limits, and he wonders what she wants to say. She directly explains how the Black Rose is a perfect place for him. Hein thinks that once he awakens his skill, he'll be better equipped to deal with Lee, Jin-hoon, and Han Buell. Julia just smirks and leaves, leaving Hein growing sus of her. The scene shifts to the training grounds with Lee entering a special chamber to train in. It's kinda like the Danger Room X-Men train in. He checks his stats and is happy he got the space control skill from the cube, so he's come here to train his spatial perception, so that he can use this skill perfectly. The drone reminds him of his meeting with Cian and Charles, but all Bro wants to do for now is train. He casts the spell destroying that part of the ground, but not as perfectly as the ghoul did it. Only one way to improve. He keeps training and digging more holes like he's making a first-night Minecraft house. He came to this infinite space training ground to try something else as well, and he tries deleting a huge area in front of him, but the parts that get deleted are what he's interested in. This would cause the game to bug out, but it should work now as he takes an empty potion bottle and decides to exploit this loophole. He traps the destroyed space in the bottle, which gives him a rare item called a potion bottle with space. He's excited about this because this has never been done in this world before. He knows the value of this item has great potential, because when he breaks this potion, the space in it returns to its original size, but there's a twist. If he infuses fire into it, it becomes a huge bomb, or a healing spell, a huge area of effect heal. This motivates him to go back to looting that dungeon. But after a day worth of doing that, he's already whining about it being repetitive and boring. Oh my god, here she comes stealing my heart again. Sion greets Lee, all lovey-dovey, asking when they are going on their assassination mission. How can you be repulsed by this baddie? He tells her how she needs to train more before the buff he cast on her expires, and she obediently agrees, asking if they are going to train in the downtown tomorrow. She explains how there's a lot of people there, and Lee immediately figures it out, because she has a lot of assassination requests, so that's why she wants to go to a place with lots of people. He says how she should train in the training center, and just then Charles comes too, asking why's his face so grim, but Bro just ignores her, saying how it's time to split to loot. The girls get skill cubes and are really happy with them. After absorbing the skills, Charles asks if she can try hers out now. Lee lets her, and she begins casting another lightning spell, but this time makes it form a spear, and Lee remembers how in the game her spear was way more powerful. But this is a good start because her skirt lifts up when she uses it. She swings it and destroys the ground around her, which surprises her a lot. Lee then checks on Sion, who's testing her new skill, which allows her to almost fly while in her shadow form. It also boosts the shadow damage of her dagger. But this lovey-dovey stare she sends Lee just confuses this idiot, making him gulp like he's living in the desert. Later, at the world's largest auction house, Daehan, Lee strolls in and is greeted by one of the employees and gives Lee his business card and asks for the reason he's here. Lee asks for the evaluation of his items, and the guy puts on a serious face after seeing them. He's surprised a high schooler is in possession of such a valuable item, and after doing some more tests he asks if he can analyze its magic circle now. Lee doesn't let him, saying how he'll upload all the details about it on his channel, asking the guy to like and subscribe with the notifications turned on. You gotta do that right now as well. The guy says how Lee's items will be the highlight of today's auction, and a bit later we already see people talking about a special item that's gonna be auctioned today. Executive Director of J1 Group, Gil Yihyun, says that no matter the price they need to get their hands on that item. She discusses more important business with her employee, but gets interrupted by Lee snoring in the background. This pisses her off immediately. And as she stands up and leaves, Lee wakes up, with her giving him a death gaze, but seeing that Boba Bounce would always put a smile on any guy's face. A bit later the auction starts, and the first 3 items being showcased are Lee's dark attribute kits. The starting price is 100 million won, and people start bidding. But Gil Yihyun doubles the highest bid, with people continuing to follow, so she outbids them by 50 million, and in just a few moments the price is already at 400 million. Lee immediately recognizes that she's Gil Song-hyun's sister, and knows that improving his friendship with her will benefit him greatly later in the game. She tells her employee how they'll go up to 1.5 billion, and this is what Lee was waiting to hear, because he was spying on them with his drone the entire auction. He's relieved he's going to get a lot of money for this item. After his item is sold, it's time for the next item, and Lee knows nothing can beat the value of his one, because he sold his 3 kits for 5.4 billion total. The auctioneer reveals the next item, and it's the sturdy egg of unknown, and hearing it couldn't even be appraised gets Lee's attention. He uses his view information ability to learn more about the item, and suddenly freezes. His eyes go crazy, and his body starts shaking after he learns that this is an SS rank item, the egg of the young Dragonian. He must buy this item at all costs. Dragons are impossible to tame, but Dragonins being a level beneath them actually are. The starting price is 100 million won, and it shoots up to 200 million, making Lee surprised people are bidding this high. He doubles the bid to 500 million and hopes no one else bids on it, and even though he buys it for 500 million, he got Gil Yihyun's attention. He's glad no one outbid him because his money's tight and he knows if people knew what this item is, he couldn't outbid them then. Usually when the dragon hatches, the first person he sees he takes as his parents. He gets up and walks towards Gil Yi-hyun to talk to her, but a guard blocks his way with the woman asking Lee what he wants. Lee doesn't understand why she's looking at him so angrily, and he knows that due to his low charm level, she's not really going to be in love with him. He says how he's the one who made the attribute kit she bought, and she asks for confirmation, so Lee gives her his info card, saying how she's free to believe whatever she wants. She decides to risk it and trust him, pushes the guard away and steps closer to take Lee's card. He says how he can't wait to hand her the attribute kit, turns around and walks away. After he leaves, she thinks how she didn't realize it at first, but this guy is unbelievably ugly. Back in his room, Lee is fondling his egg, even giving it his blood. The egg absorbs his blood while he gives it more, so the drone warns him how he needs to slow down or he'll faint. Lee then gives the egg a bit of his mana, as he anxiously wants for it to hatch ASAP. The drone gets in his face telling him to stop or he'll hurt himself. And this time Lee listens. Even though he played the game a lot, he doesn't know much about the dragon and eggs, but remembers a video talking about it that he's watched once, so he plays it again. It is about an evil dragon Hegemord, who reached divinity and none other than Jin Hoon. Two of them faced off in a battle, exchanging fists and dragon breaths. Lee thinks how the adult Jin Hoon is terrifying and fondles his egg more, saying how Jin Hoon will beat its ass too if it hatches into an evil dragon. The following day, students comment on Lee being weird for carrying a huge egg in his bag, but some also notice how his looks slightly improved, while others fiercely disagree, and Lee knows his charm is improving slowly thanks to the charm potion he used. But this is way too slow, and he can't stand the humiliation. The students get greeted by Han Do-suk, an S-class hero, who was their guide on the first practical skill test, and Lee knows that even though S rank is one rank above A, most A rankers can never dream of reaching it. Han Do-suk lets them know how starting this week they will get specialized weapon training on top of the regular one. He asks them to choose their preferable weapon again, and as time passes, Lee notices that most of the students are choosing swords besides magic students who would go for wands. Wow, no shit, Sherlock. Jin Hoon takes no weapon because he talks with his fists, and even Han Boyle decides to stay weaponless. A girl choosing a bow grabs Lee's attention, and he immediately remembers she is on high rim. He scans her info and is positively surprised her focus thinking and element skills are already awakened, but her unawakened skill multiple personality is what's important to Lee, because it allows her to change her stats easily by switching personalities. She will become one of the strongest characters, so Lee decides to make her an ally too. Now it's his time to choose a weapon, and he goes for a sword and wand again. Han Do-suk says how this was expected from a talent like Lee, and this surprises Lee, and Han then explains how choosing two weapons is great, but even if you're a genius, this could be a mistake. Feeling the hateful gazes of other students almost makes Lee cry. Back in his room that night, he's ready to give the egg more of his blood and mana, and starts recording a video on how to hatch a Dragononian egg. He can't wait to see the views this video will get. But feeding it blood and mana for an hour almost makes him faint again, but he doesn't mind as long as the egg hatches, which it actually starts doing now. Lee used up dozens of liters of his blood so far, but the claws finally poke out and it starts absorbing mana through the cracks. Suddenly the egg busts like me on the first day of NNN. Finally a cute little dragon baby is born. Lee is mesmerized by how kawaii it is and introduces himself as its father, snuggling and petting it and giving it a name, White. He scans the baby's info and is surprised at its really high stats. Dragon Heart basically contains infinite mana, and Lee is ecstatic. He got a baby pet as powerful as this one. They fall asleep with Lee waking up in the middle of the night to check the views of his last video, and then his recognition points too. The baby Dragonian awakes and Lee starts petting it so much he almost burns its head. He then decides to buy more loot boxes for his recognition points, with the drone letting him know how getting charm potions from them would be great for his online persona, because people love beautiful YouTubers. Lee opens the boxes and gets more drugs from them. All of them increase his charm stat. The scene shifts to the top of a skyscraper, and we see Song Ai-yun spying on Han Buyul and his family member Jung Yun, who is making moves on the low. She also thinks how Julia Martin will be problematic. Maybe she needs her eyes gouged out, Song Ai-yun thinks. She then remembers Lee, who already created his own group, is using magic and swords. All this implies his ridiculous amount of talent. She wonders why Lee refused her offer to join their organization, and then jumps down the building like her name is Bruce Wayne, turns to shadow and slips in through the vents. She dispatches the guards quickly, easily, and silently, finally reaching her target, and before the man can even finish a sentence, she sends him to talk to God instead. The assassinations are making her blush. Next morning, Lee wakes up with the dragon and sleeping next to him. If he remembers correctly, the main quest should start soon, and tells the drone to watch out for his baby while he's in class. He needs to get an ability to control enormous energy for when the dragon baby grows up, so he decides to look for it in the underworld. He sees a message from Gil Yi-hyun, who wants to meet with him right away, and so far all is going according to his plan, and he keeps this pace. He'll beat the first main quest easily. We go to the weapon testing grounds with Gil Yi-hyun and Lee meeting there. She thinks how the items were hella expensive, but seeing the faces of her scientists convinced her it was a good investment because those cubes are years ahead of their current technology. What confuses her is how an ordinary student like Lee could make these, Knowing he'll be world influential in the future, she decides to recruit him no matter the cost. Lee remembers this place from the game too, and asks Gil Yi-hyun to notify everyone for a first-degree test alert. This means that hundreds of magic stones would get used to set up magic barriers, which are usually only used during nuclear bomb tests of high levels. She obeys Lee with him letting her know how it's not a nuclear blast, but the shock power will be similar. This scares her, as he takes out an enchanted potion bottle. She calls it beautiful, but Lee knows that this should only be used in the Darklands. She yells for Lee that he stepped outside the safety zone, but Bro's aura farming how confident he is, and this is making her drizzle a bit down south. He throws the potion like a pokeball, and as soon as it smashes, a huge blue explosion erupts, which Lee blocks with his magic. Then an after explosion occurs, but Lee's still successfully blocking it, and Bro's not stupid. He did all this to level up his stats, which he did drastically. He couldn't have done it anywhere else, and not endanger others, so that's why I organized it at the weapon testing grounds. The aftermath of the explosion is a huge hole everywhere, but behind Lee, and he thinks how doing this twice would definitely kill him. His magic control leveled up to B rank, with space control going to C rank. This would usually take months to achieve, but looking back at the staff, they all look like they've seen a ghost. While the explosion was happening, Gil Yi-hyun was thinking how if it was not enough that the power of the potion is impressive, him standing there and blocking it definitely is. This makes her afraid of Lee becoming her enemy, and she's sure his mana controlling skill is over even rank S, all this while he's only a student still. She calms down and starts walking to him and cameraman, I need more of this angle, bro. The following day, Lee's having a class on the basics of rating, and now the students are wondering if he got plastic surgery because Bro's looks maxing all of a sudden. He's glad his charm boosts worked like a charm, even though his charm is still at 15, which is kinda average. At 40, people treat you like a model. However, in some cases, like Sung Seon, even though her charm is over 40, her personality makes people dislike her. I was telling you from the start, geez, she's a baddie. The teacher says how they'll form 10 groups of 5 students now, explaining how each group needs 1 long-range DPS, 1 short-range DPS, 2 supports and a tank. Lee gets a role of the tank in his group. Long range of his group is An Hee Rim and one of the supports is Lee Ji-sung. More people named Lee. Nice. Seon is their short-range DPS, and the last support is Julia Martin. They have an hour to come up with a strategy, and then the practical phase starts. Lee's not happy with all the members of his group, mainly with Julia Martin. He explains the role of the tank, which you all know, so I won't bother you with his yappuccino about it. Julia comments how Lee being a 500th rank will be problematic for them, but Seon stabs her, figuratively, saying how a mere 30th rank is talking. This pisses Julia off, but Seon continues. Lee can't believe their behavior, but they are 17 after all. Pause, I take back everything I've said about Seon. They continue bickering, but Julia then says how it's praiseworthy reaching 500th rank without any background, and this shuts up Seon, which Julia absolutely loves, since she's implying Seon's rank is high thanks to her family. Seon's face stays stoic as she reaches for her knife, which changes Julia's smile to a scared expression after seeing the murderous aura surging from Seon. Lee barges in to stop Si-hyun from unaliving Julia, saying how they have to prepare for the practical phase. This calms Si-hyun down a bit, and after he touches her shoulder, which makes her blush, she decides to let it go for now. Hearing for no doesn't ease Julia's mind, and Lee can't believe they almost got expelled. The first raid group of students is ready, and Han Ba-yul is its tank, and faces a huge ogre, and Lee knows after what they've gone through a couple of weeks back, this is going to be easy peasy for Han Ba-yul. The ogre goes for a punch, but Han stops it with telekinesis, making the ogre miss. He then steps to its side, and Lee's surprised how well Han's holding aggro from this monster. After a bit, the monster falls dead with Han's group clearing the raid in little under 9 minutes. Students are amazed that Han used telekinesis with one hand and magic with the other, but now it's time for Group 2, whose tank is Jin-hoon. They clear the raid in 10 minutes and 4 seconds. Next up is Group 4, having Gil Song-hyun as their long-range DPS, with the girls going crazy for him. He dodges some attacks, steps back, and activates his double fire circle magic, and Lee's surprised that he already unlocked his magic replication skill. He can now level it up, which will allow him to spawn even more magic circles. And Lee's sad he couldn't make Gil Song-hyun his ally, because that means he's going to be a formidable opponent down the line. He wonders if he should kill Gil Song-hyun before he reaches his full potential. Now it's time for Lee's group, and they decide to just ignore Julia Martin during the raid. After his experience at the weapon testing grounds, he alone can handle a single ogre, but since others gotta learn too, he turns around saying they should do it in less than 7 minutes. The girls can't believe how high his expectations are, but Bro just runs in, reaching the ogre quickly, blocks the ogre's punch and makes the monster enraged. This means he's getting its aggro. But the next attack was quick, and Lee barely blocks it, also wondering how Jin-hoon managed to beat this ogre with just his fists. He sees a perfect spot to use his space control skill, aims at the ogre's shoulder and almost misses completely because the ogre dodged. He's surprised the monster did that, but he knows he's dealt enough damage to it, and now the arrows start flying in at the damaged spot. Seon uses her shadow step to attack from the back, slamming her dagger deep into the wound. The ogre recovers, but Lee's already aiming at the other shoulder, and the ogre tries to dodge but in the wrong direction, putting his neck in the target area, and Lee's scared that this might kill the ogre too quickly. On High Rim readies her bow and lets the arrow loose with Julia Martin casting Fire Magic Circle. Singyeon wastes no time too, and with all of their attacks combined, the ogre still stands for like a second longer, and then slams down on the ground like a tired Snorlax. They've managed to kill the ogre in 3 minutes and 43 seconds, completely shocking all the students watching this, and Lee's worried that finishing this fast will increase the game's difficulty even more. No point in crying about it since he can record a video, and calls his drone closer, striking a pose perfect for the thumbnail, but secretly crying inside. The practical exam is done, and Lee is pleased. Yesterday's deal, 3% of item sales for 3 years, will provide a good passive income. He knows that Gil Yehoon didn't just accept this deal because she wanted the items, but she's way more cunning than that. She wants to keep Lee close too, which he doesn't mind too, since that's going to allow him to get close to her brother Gil Song-hoon. He hopes to save the guy before he becomes evil later in life. Plus, coaxing Julia Martin would also be smart since he could ally himself with her family's company that way too. He's also gotten an honorary top research position in Gil Yehoon's organization Jaehoon Group. He then spots Seon all shining over there, and he's not used to seeing her like that, remembering her from the game. A huge explosion outside grabs everyone's attention, and as they run out they see a building getting attacked, which means that the main quest is starting. The academy is being attacked by 200 terrorists and almost 900 monsters. Lee knows the main quest is hard, but he should be well prepared. He calls for Jin-hoon and Han Blul, asking for their help in saving the civilians. Jin nods, but Han is skeptical. Lee also asks the help from Sergei, Seon, and Charles, and lastly from Gil Song-hoon and Julia Martin too. Both refuse, saying they'll move solo, and Lee yells for everyone to listen. He explains how the academy is isolated, meaning it's impossible to leave, and this scares everyone here. Plus they can't contact anyone on the outside, so they need to fight true and endure the attack. He gives everyone a map, but Han Blul asks how he knows all this. Lee stays silent, and Han says how he expects an explanation once they deal with this. Lee figures Han's sus of him being from the Dark Land. He then sends Sergei, Charles, and Seohan to the headquarters, and Seohan's surprised at how analytical Lee is. She tries asking him something, but he says how they'll talk later, and the three of them leave. He tries giving the map to Gil Yi-han, but bro doesn't care, which pisses Lee off, but he's hopeful they'll succeed. He then approaches On High Rim, asking her help, which terrifies the girl as she did not expect this at all. He explains how having an archer on his side would be amazing. Plus, he wants to get close to her and awaken her ability by having her go through combat experience. Her knees tremble from the fear, but Lee asks politely again and grabs her by the hand, saying how she'll be safe just shooting from afar. They run together towards the battle. We see the teachers outside trying to get in, but are kept out by a barrier that's unbreakable, and they realize whoever put this barrier up knows what he's doing and is targeting the students. Duseo takes out his sword to try and smash the barrier again. He knows every single second counts and wonders who the hell orchestrated all of this. He thinks about how the enemy is also inside right now. He casts his ability Sword That Breaks the Sky. This is one of the strongest sword abilities, and Duseok even signed a contract with the high-ranked deity to get it. He didn't master this ability completely, and if he doesn't control it well, he might even lose an arm, but that's a price he's willing to pay to save the students. He charges up the sword and swings it, hitting the barrier but creates just a small dent in it. He charges up the sword even more now, but then a sound from the inside interrupts him, and he sees Lee on the other side telling him to stop the sword attack, even calling him an idiot. And this makes Duseok pissed at him, but losing focus for a split second makes him faint because he was still channeling the sword ability. The scene shifts to the inside a bit earlier, where even the dragons are going after students. Lee and On High Rim go to the meeting room, where she'll guard him as he tries to break the barrier. He brought magic stones just for this, but now fears they won't be enough. On High Rim gives the dragon a new eye socket, killing it instantly, and Lee's satisfied to see her doing well. Lee wants to act quickly because he remembers that Duseok lost his arm, which caused him to fall in despair. Lee hopes that if he saves his arm, Duseok will reach the double S rank. He suddenly senses the barrier vibrating and knows what that means. That when we get back to the present, with Lee just barely opening the barrier, squeezing through and yelling at his idiot teacher to stop. Better to faint than to lose a limb. The other teacher thanks Lee for stopping Duseok and asks how the hell did he break this advanced barrier. Lee acts like a total idiot to hide his skills, saying how he's had a part-time job breaking barriers and then runs off. He gets back in and sees On High Rim is getting tired, and Lee thinks of a way to make her other personality come out. They run towards the fires as he checks up on the stats of the main quest so far. He's happy with how it's going so far, and two of them run towards the Academy's engineering research lab because there's a treasure-grade item well hidden there. There's actually human bad guys there who have already killed all the security guards and are making their way towards the same item Lee's after right now. The heart of the ancient giant, and if this is well hidden, then I'm the Pope. The leader of this group is a guy named Jonathan, an A-class mercenary of the Twilight Wolf. The thugs start hacking the system to lower the defenses around the heart, and Jonathan orders the rest to find the head of the research center because they need him to activate the item too. But they don't need his legs, wink wink. A guard charges in to stop them, but gets dealt with faster than me in bed. The thug sees Lee's potion bomb, which blows up in his face like his name is Hiroshima. The MC's actually here sneaking around and unaliving them with bombs, with An High Rim trembling in fear behind him. Seeing the dead bodies almost makes her puke. but Lee shakes some sense back into her, literally. His goal is to actually make her other personality come out, and man, I hope it's a nympho one. She tries to calm down, but seeing all these dead bodies is making her feel hotter and hotter as she thinks how if they don't kill the bandits, they will be killed. Suddenly, a strange sensation overcomes her, and even Lee starts shaking now because her multiple personality skill has great influence on people around her too. This means her skill is almost activated. They stumble upon two B-rank bandits, and Lee immediately charges forward, clashing swords with one, and even though these guys are tough, Lee is excited to test his skills, but suddenly An Hai-rim's silhouette dashes with the speed of light, and with a crazed facial expression she goes into melee combat too. Her relentless attacks make the bandit step back, but he manages to almost cut her with a counterattack, making her hair fall down, and this crazy face is making me want to smash. Lee also can't believe what he's seeing, and checks her info and sees her slaughterer personality has awoken. He's happy to finally see this, especially seeing the thugs terrified of her too. She just turned into a perfect predator, and is just toying with her prey right now. She quickly slashes the guy from up top like this is what she does for breakfast. Just moments later, all of them are dead, and Lee can't believe she took down two B-rankers so fast. As he walks by, he wonders if she's back to her old self, but seeing the heart of the ancient giant makes him forget all about it. He was lucky the bandits already took down the defenses. After looting it, he calls for An Hai-rim to leave with him, but she doesn't respond because she's still in pure instinct fighting mode. So Lee tells her that she should come with him to kill some people, and this immediately gets her attention. But bro's scared for his own safety, so he starts petting her to get on her good side. She smiles, which terrifies him even more. As he turns and walks away, she pulls him back, this time with more of a calm expression, and he thinks that it's good that her killer personality considers him a friend. They walk away together, but after coming out, they're greeted with a dozen more of the bandits. But Lee just nods to An Hai-rim, letting her know that she can freely go on a killing spree. The crazed smile is back as she thinks, oh boy, here I go killing again. The scene shifts to Jin-hoon and Han Byul, with Jin admiring Lee's map and Han being sus how perfect it is. Han thinks how if Lee ever turns bad, they'll be in big shit since this level of info he got on the map couldn't be obtained even by the best guilds. Jin-hoon is just being a naive doofus, saying how it doesn't matter how he got it, it's great he did. We see Sion, Charles, and Sergei also admiring Lee's perfect map, and Sion wonders where did Lee go with An Hai-rim, and why did the two of them go alone. They meet up with Jin-hoon and report the situation, but a huge tremor ends their good mood. Han Byul sees the teachers got in, as Du-seok asks him for help, and Han stoic as ever asks what's going on. Du-seok explains how the vibrations come from the Engineering Research Center, and Han immediately figures it's about the ancient giant heart. Du-seok confirms this, and they immediately make their way there. After getting to the scene, hundreds of dead bodies of thugs everywhere decorate the ground. However, Lee and An Hai-rim are still fighting as these bandits keep spawning like minions in League of Legends. An Hai-rim is having the time of her life, toying with the bandits before sending them to God. Not even a surprise back attack hits her, as she dodges sideways easily. Lee helps her get back in the fight, and imagine seeing this falling down at you from the sky. Another one bites the dust. Just a simple stare from her startles the bandits, who run away like they left the stove on in the kitchen. Lee quickly kills them with his space control skill, and seeing the mayhem they're causing leaves even S-rank Du-seok in disbelief. Now we learn that two main groups behind this operation were the existence of the Night and the Twilight Wolf. Their preparation was immaculate, but they were completely destroyed. The hooded guy can't believe it. It's like someone knew their plan to the letter, which should be impossible. The leader of the Twilight Wolf, S-rank Paul Holland, is hella confused. He wonders if Du-seok figured it all out, but it's still literally impossible for anyone to have figured their plan out so well. Every single move they've made was preemptively stopped. However he puts it, Paul knows it makes no sense. They failed at both of their goals, getting the heart and killing the students. He notifies the surviving thugs how they're going for plan B now. He will blow up the dormitory since most of the students are sheltering there. Plus both Lee and Du-seok are at the Engineering Research Center, which is hella far from the dormitory. Plus monsters and barriers are set up again to block them from reaching here in time, and he knows that plan B cannot be stopped because literally almost no one knows about it. Back to Lee, who's barely holding it after pushing himself so much, while An Hai-rim stands there like she just woke up. Lee then sees monsters spawning again and a new barrier around them, and immediately realizes that the enemy switched to plan B. Oh, how happy Paul Holland will be. Lee buys more loot boxes to get stamina recovery items and gets a high-level dragon sedative. Lee's confused as to why the system is saying that his luck is reacting to the current situation, and the drone flies in announcing that the dormitory has already been attacked. Two S-rankers reach the dormitory and are amazed at the huge defense zone, but that doesn't stop them from breaking it down. It's going to take a while to do so, and they are surprised that someone was able to break the previous one in an hour. Even if the info was leaked, it should have taken at least 4 hours to break it, and Holland says from the reports it was a student. The spider sense of the guy working on the barrier activates and he warns the leader about it, but just then the barrier cracks and quickly vanishes away. Holland yells for everyone to blow up the dormitory, but sudden shakes of the building make the thug think the blowing started early. A loud scream scares them, and Holland starts to choke. He reached S class status through extortion by taking a dragon scale, but it left him cursed. He is strong generally, but drastically weakened by anything containing dragon blood, which can only mean one thing. The thugs are scared, but then notices a young girl, and she lets out another roar, making Holland bust a nut almost. Realizing the girl has dragon blood, the thug stains his pants brown. He's trying to come up with a plan for what to do now and yells for everyone to retreat as he slams down a smoke bomb. He opens an escape portal, but before running away throws a special potion that makes dragons go mad. The potion flies directly at the dragon girl. But now back to the present. Lee wonders how did the enemy deal with White so easily. He's got to deal with the monsters in the barrier first, and ask for help from the other students. They all agree and get to work. After taking it down, Lee leaves the students to deal with the monsters and reaches White just in time as she's about to have a potion slammed down her throat. He immediately figures out what it is and jumps to stop it, barely catching it and landing with pure aura. The potion is hella expensive, so he's happy about that too. The girl calls him Dada and runs in to hug him. Lee's happy to see her able to take human shape now, and she almost starts crying because he left her alone. The rest of the students reach Lee, and he also spots Sion's dagger on the floor. Jinhoon is terrified to learn of Lee's marriage, but Han Buell explains how there's no way this girl is his actual daughter. They spot her tail, and Jinhoon wonders if Lee's married to a dragon mommy. He can't say that she's not his daughter while she's looking at him with that puppy face, so he doubles down saying she is his daughter, hoping they will understand she's actually not because she has a fucking tail. Later that night, Sion is clearly extremely happy as she remembers how awesome Lee was today. But she's jealous of Anheirim fighting alongside him, plus bro has a daughter and all this makes Sion feel empty and broken. She's never had these feelings before. She gets herself a 5-shot Americano, which is still disgusting. She sighs how she misses Lee, but immediately blushes after realizing what she just said. She then realizes that she could kill Lee's wife and decides to hit Lee up and ask if he's married. Bro suddenly appears behind her, and Sion asks about his kid. Lee explains how she recently hatched from a Draganian egg, and how she took Lee as his dad after hatching. Just imagine the wave of relief washing over Sion right now. Lee returns her dagger and walks away. After he leaves, she's extremely embarrassed. She thought he has a wife and a kid, but then also wonders who the hell is he, since he's raising a Draganian. The scene shifts to Lee in his room, inspecting the heart of the ancient giant. He tells Halen to sell his loot because he's going to the underworld soon, and then checks for the rewards for completing the main quest. He gets 2 stat buffs, a high-grade loot box, and whopping 3k recognition points. He also opens the shop to decide what to buy for his underworld visit. A bit later, he goes live with his baby Dragonian, which makes the chat look like speed stream, earning Lee some easy recognition points. The following day, Lee visits weapon testing grounds, with Gil Yi-hyun acting pleased to see him, but definitely notices something is different with Lee, like he's a new person. She tells him that, and he laughs it off but knows it's because his charm stat has increased a lot. She hands him the prototype attribute kit made after Lee's and then takes him for a tour around the research lab. In the Magic Stone Charger laboratory, Lee asks what's the absorption rate of their group, and hearing it's around 30%, he knows they can't make much money while it's that low. They meet with Chief Lee Ho-Hyun, and Lee proposes a bet on who can create a more efficient Magic Stone Charger using the same Magic Stone. If he wins the bet, he wants to upload the video of it on YouTube, and the guy agrees as long as Lee doesn't reveal the lab secrets on camera. He takes out a green Magic Stone and strikes a thumbnail pose. After 10 minutes, Lee's done and made a 40% charge stone, even though he could have done 90. He figures how if he gradually surpasses the charge limits, he'll get paid each time. After seeing Chief Lee Ho-Hyun's stone with 0.5% higher charge, all the staff was amazed at how he was able to do it. Next up is Lee's Magic Stone, which is sitting at 47.9%. Everyone is in complete disbelief, and even Lee didn't expect to overdo it this much. He strikes another victory pose for the video, because he won the bet. While he heads back home, he checks his status window with all his stats improved, the most important being his charm stat, which is now above 20, making Lee above average looks wise. He meets Jinhoon and Han Buell, and seeing Han Buell's typical cynical face makes Lee uncomfortable. He then spots Sion and waves at her, hoping she'll save him from Han Buell, but after she sees Lee, she just turns away in anger, then becomes a shadow and dips. Yup, my bro is screwed. Jinhoon asks him why Sion is mad at him, and Lee comments how they're just friends, but the guys talk between themselves, how she's been acting weird around Lee for a reason. Jinhoon makes fun of Lee for being a sword and magic master, but a romantic idiot, and Lee then figures out how she's jelly because of his teamwork with Anheirim. Later during the class, the teacher explains they'll learn about barriers today, in the light of recent events. She explains that a barrier is the combination of circuit and magic circle that dominates the space. Also, the Lord of the Magic Tower who made the Academy's magic defense system has vanished. Lee knows that this makes him highly sus, making the Academy wary of more spies like him. The teacher says how a new barrier will be set up by trusted people and students, as she asks Lee if he would be interested in this. He smiles, saying barriers are his hobby right now, so the teacher gets back to the lecture, wanting to talk to Lee after class. She explains how what Lee did with breaking the last barrier takes at least 1 or 2 decades to learn and master. Lee doesn't care about the class, and wants to make a present for Silian to make up with her. After the class, Lee and the teacher start their conversation. She explains how she doesn't want to pry in his past, but wants to know if he will help them with the new barrier or not. She wants Lee to be in charge of mana efficiency control, and asks him if he's planning on participating in the Students' World Olympics. He plans to do so, because that would allow him to graduate early. After their little date is over, Lee's thinking about Silian again, and is in a dilemma whether to call her or not. Halen tells him to call her, and getting dating advice from AI was not on his Christmas list. He calls her up, they have a talk, and by the time they're done, Bro has scored himself an assassination date with Silian. The scene shifts to Han Tae, the eldest brother of Han Buell, talking with his father Han Gu Bon, the head of the family. Han Tae apologizes for not completing the mission yet, but his father tells him to stop yapping like a girl. Han Buell is listening to them talk, and knows the Mount Leon they're talking about is the only place in the Darklands that's not demon-infested. Even his eldest brother, a double S ranker, can't get there easily. Then the father calls for Han Gun, the second eldest brother, and asks him about the underworld action happening. Han Gun explains how there will be 2 world-class items on it, and the father instructs him and Buell to go to the auction together. He calls for Han Buell then, who nervously responds, but he knows he wouldn't be sitting here if his father thought of him as useless. Han Buell Bon says how he wants to meet his classmate Lee, ordering Han Buell to bring Lee to the auction as well. Han Buell nods obediently. We learn that ghouls are the biggest losers, but this one in particular is basically a twisted fusion of magic, science, and multiple living organisms. At the underworld's black market, Lee, against all odds, seeks to purchase this specific ghoul. He's going to be happy with any slave monster that can fight though. He decides to use his scan ability to find a perfect match, and inspects this Saitama-looking ass, but then gets surprised after seeing a ghoul named Zhang Chil, who hasn't the faintest idea who the hell Lee is. Lee remembers that this ghoul becomes the king of the ghouls later in the game, and he recognizes him by his shiny bald head. Zhang Chil calls himself an outstanding ghoul, and even though he still hasn't awakened his special power, Lee's impressed because this guy can make ghouls. He asks for an empty ghoul, and Zhang Chil asks how many ghouls Lee want to buy, and after hearing Lee wants to buy one, the guy tells Lee to follow him. They reach a room with empty ghouls, and Lee cheats again with his scan info skill, and after deciding on the one he wants, he instructs Zhang Chil on how to make it. Zhang Chil says it's gonna cost 180 million won. Lee needs to come tomorrow to pick it up, and after checking his business card, Zhang Chil is surprised at Lee's accomplishments for his young age. The following day, Lee returns, and the ghoul's boss is surprised at how Lee was able to create a perfect ghoul. Lee says how he got lucky, but it's thanks to his game knowledge and scan skill. Lee then says how he wants to invest 35 billion won, and Zhang Chil says how that's a lot of money, but Lee's fine with just taking 30% of the stocks of his store. They go to check the ghoul he made for Lee, and of course it's a ghoul baddie. Lee is already planning to upload his Halen AI into this body, and after checking her stats he sees that her specialty is childcare. He immediately figures he can use this ability to boost his baby dragon, and hands out the payment for the ghoul. He then orders his drone Halen to merge with the ghoul, and her body's getting scanned like I haven't done it already. Lee takes out the heart of the ancient giant, and the ghoul boss's heart starts racing, realizing that this is a special ingredient. Lee pushes the heart into her chest, causing it to glow as she slowly opens her eyes and comes to life. Zhang Zhou cannot believe that Lee just fused a legendary rank material so quickly with the body of a ghoul, and he decides to stick close to Lee to learn as much as he can from him. Lee and Halen leave, and he tells her that 2 of them will act as parents towards White. They spot Han Buell then, and he wants to talk about the terrorist attack. Lee doesn't want to talk about it and tells Han Buell that he learned about it accidentally, just before it happened, but Han doesn't give up asking how he learned about it then. Lee says from his underworld connections, but Han Buell doesn't buy it since the biggest guilds heard nothing about it. Lee asks, how's he certain these guilds didn't lie to him, which leaves Han Buell speechless for a bit, and Lee walks past him with a smirk. Han stops him however, and Lee's not too happy about it. Han lets out a sigh and says how he'll stop pretending to and lets him know that his father would like to meet him. Lee is shocked, almost like he just found out he has a long-lost son, because he has no clue why the Devil King would want to meet him. Han asks him if he's gonna be okay, and with a tremble in his voice, Lee responds how yes he should be. Before Lee leaves, he lets Han Buell know that he is not the child of the Dark Land, and Han takes it as stoic as ever. Later, Lee's back in his room shitting bricks for having to meet that guy so early in the game, and has to figure out a reason for Han Buell's father not to kill him as soon as he sees him. The scene shifts to Holland coming to his senses after he fainted from White's screams as he wonders who the hell brought a Dragonian to school. He remembers seeing a guy stop the dragon stimulant, so it has to be him, and Holland makes it his life mission to kill this guy. Back to Lee in the training arena because he needs to prepare for his meeting with Han Buell's father. He has 3 ability cubes with short-distance space teleportation, gravity resistance, and time resistance skills. He combines them, and this makes his space control skill level up from S to double S rank, as he looks like an average Chernobyl resident while doing it. He thinks he's strong enough now to run away without dying when he meets the guy. He then decides to do a special training on Halen and White, where he'll throw magic bombs at them to increase their magic resistance, or straight up kill them. Plus he plans to record this too. Now we see Nadia stalking Sergei, who doesn't really like that, but she blushes saying how she wants to train with him. Sergei has no clue how Lee was able to riz such a difficult girl so easily, but then they sense an earthquake coming from the training arena, and after it stopped, they decide to go in. But Sergei's face is painted with terror after he sees a shadow of a huge dragon looming over them. Nadia falls down, but Lee, seeing them, casually says what's up, like it's nothing. He explains how he's just practicing containing his magic, and Sergei's just surprised at this flex. Magic control while almost taking down the entire building. Lee introduces Halen as his AI ghoul-bodied assistant, and of course his daughter White, dragon. But then while speaking to Nadia, Bro turns into Tate the misogynist, telling her she's being incredibly rude as he walks right past her. A couple of days pass, and it's the weekend at the auction. Lee meets with Han Bile, who tells his father is waiting inside. Lee feels tense as he gets close to Han Gaban, but then spots a person who spent 20 years in the Dark Land and looks like a boomer version of Todoroki. Next to him is Han Bile's father, and the two of them aren't really on friendly terms. Lee's heart wants to burst out of his chest. Han Guban introduces himself, and Lee can't even scan him. How over-leveled the guy is. The current item on the auction is a ghoul called Saren, and Han Guban asks Lee what he thinks of this ghoul. Lee knows he's being tested right now, and says the ghoul is nice, and Han Guban tells Lee they can make a deal on it, which shocks Han Guban, who calls for his father, but Lee shoos him away like a true Sigma Chad. Han Guban finds this amusing, and Lee says he'd like to make a deal, but first he'd like Han Guban to see Lee's next item on the auction, saying he'll like it, but the guy asks what if he doesn't like it, which makes Lee gulp in fear like a Looney Tunes character. The guy brings in the next item, which is a legendary magic purification potion, and immediately gets the crowd riled up. Even Boomer Todoroki's surprised, and Lee knows that he's surprised, because his lifespan was shortened because of magic. Lee decides to be bold, and comments how his item's more expensive than Hanguban's ghoul. But the dude is unrattled, and asks Lee if he can make more, and with necessary ingredients, Lee says he can make anything. The bidding starts, quickly reaching 4 trillion, and Hanguban calls Lee a very tempting child. Whoa, hold up Diddy. Hearing this terrifies Lee, so he asks Hanguban what's the rush, and if it has to do anything with El Potten, who's a guild leader of the Twilight's Wolf. Lee proposes a new deal. He'll also let Hanguban know where El Potten is, and in returns asks him to let go of Han Bile. Han Bile's surprised, hearing this, and Lee explains how he doesn't want Han Bile to be forced to act like their family. Usually acts, Hanguban says how Han Bile's still young, and if he lets him go, he'll get enemies from all sides, since his blood is still of their family. Lee explains how he trusts in Han Bile's strength, so his father asks him if this is what he wants too. Scared, he answers that he does want it. Hanguban then agrees to let him go, and Han Bile turns around to hide his tears. Lee then walks up and points ahead, saying how El Patton is over there, with a huge explosion happening, and someone grabbing Lee's potion. A hooded group of people burst in the room as their leader runs away with the potion. Lee actually intentionally leaked info about this auction to bait these guys here, and as he leaves, Hanguban starts to channel his aura, which quickly covers the room. Lee knows this place will soon turn into a war zone, so he needs to leave quickly. He grabs Hanguban and uses his short-distance teleportation to escape. Lee knows Hanguban and Boomer Todoroki will win the battle, but El Potten will be able to escape with his potion. Lee asks Hanguban for help, explaining how he knows where the stolen items will be taken to. Now we see Holland with his crew getting the items in their warehouse via teleportation magic. But just as they're about to leave with the items, a familiar bomb rolls up to him. It explodes, but Holland's able to put up a barrier in the last moment, saving himself. But his crewmates are dead. Lee bursts from above, and Holland can't believe it's him. He sticks the superhero landing again, and Holland Dragon Trauma makes Bro start twitching immediately. White lets out a shriek, which instantly knocks Holland out cold like a Mike Tyson punch. Lee feels lucky that the guy they hired to transport the stolen items is Holland. Hangubal's on a standby, thinking how he came to help, but is just an observer. Later in Lee's room, he's happy to see he gained so much recognition points plus made so much money, all thanks to the auction, plus he's got a new legendary potion maker skill. Even though he was nervous to meet Hanguban, everything turned out well. Later that night, Lee goes to a rooftop looking for Xian, who creeps up behind him in all black. Lee immediately notices she's wearing makeup for the first time ever, and if he wasn't an awkward loser when it comes to chicks, he would definitely get some tonight. He gives her a small box as a present, and it's magic earrings he made himself. She takes them and puts them on, then blushes, saying how they need to go. Lee's glad she's softened up and thinks how he would have never accepted this assassination mission if their target wasn't an illegal weapons dealer, Mahjong Chul. The guy also collects rare cubes. CF1 thanks Lee for the gift, and they talk about their mission. They only need to kill this one guy, and not his thugs, and they'll get 100 billion plus all the items they are able to loot. She tells Lee to try and not slow her down, and a bit of blood splattering later, they're done with the mission, with Lee even finding a skill cube he needed. Killing a person makes CF1 orgasm, and Lee can't help but feel attracted to her like this. The following day, he's sitting in the cafeteria, and checking all the skill cubes he looted the last night. He opens one and gets the Life of Attention Seeker, SS rank skill, but is not too happy about it, because this skill basically makes him stronger the more attention he gets. He decides to absorb the skill after all, which actually increases his base stats by a lot, thanks to all the attention he already has on him. This makes him happy. Anhye Rim apologizes for being late, and also for her killing spree last time they were together. Lee says how there's nothing to apologize for, and tells her to rely on him if it ever happens again. She asks if he really means it, and Lee says how her multiple personalities are actually an advantage, rather than a hindrance. He explains how her skill works, and she is confused as to how he knows all of this. Lee says he knew someone with the same ability before, thinking of her from the game he played. Back in his room, Bro feels nostalgic of his previous life. A magic vibration gets him up, so he figures that a gate in Gangwon-do must have opened. He calls Gil Yi-hyun, yelling at her for going to the Gangwon-do gates. She apologizes, and before she can tell Lee where she is right now, the connection cuts. The last thing she said is that there are monsters everywhere, and Lee gets an emergency quest to save Gil Yi-hyun. We see her standing in front of the demon gates. These gates used to connect the human world to the one of the monsters, but haven't been seen in a while. Her bodyguards tell her they need to move, and explains how they've already called the Jaeyoon PMC and other guilds for help. But both of them freeze in fear after seeing a huge purple barrier around the base, with the Lich being the one who set it up. The army of the A-rank undead march forward, and Gil Yi-hyun refuses to evacuate, and decides to stop them herself as the skeletons close in. Back to Lee, who's talking to Gil Song-hyun and explaining what just happened, and Lee wants to bring a group of students with him over there to help fight the undead. Gil Song-hyun is skeptical they can do anything about it, but Lee is confident they can at least stall until Jae-hyun's group arrives. Lee thinks it's time he uses an overload buffer and shield generator together, now or else they might not survive. The group of students that he'll teleport to the battlefield is gathered, and he tells them that hopefully they had a light breakfast, because they're about to teleport. The scene shifts back to the battlefield, where undead are attacking Gil Yi-hyun. She stomps the ground, sending an ice magic attack that freezes the undead in place, giving her bodyguard an opening to decapitate it. They keep fighting, with Gil Yi-hyun and the rest getting visibly exhausted, so she yells at the team leader Kim Tae-gyu that it's time for them to retreat now, but he refuses to leave her behind, and just when she's about to lose hope, All Might-style laughter echoes from the sky, with the students teleporting in and already attacking while falling down. Gil Seong-hyun's icicles rain down on the undead and shock his sister with his strength, considering he's just a C-class nobody. She spots Batman's utility belt on his waist and knows it must be Lee's contraption, and while she's busy being surprised, the students are saving the day. Lee is live-streaming this fight because this also amplifies his powers. Thanks to the life of an attention-seeker skill, this leveled up his magic to an S rank for now, so he decides to cast the Fury of the Heaven spell with a huge light beam slamming down on the undead and burning them to a crisp. Gil Yi-hyun is taken aback too, and seeing all the undead gone shocks her even more. It seems she's here just to be shocked. She figures out Lee's the one who cast the Fury of the Heaven right now, which is an AoE heal and damage dealer. Lee gets a notification that he's completed the quest to save Gil Yi-hyun and so many achievements that even Snoop Dogg would be jealous. Achievements in this world level up your status, and despite it still being rather low, Lee can feel it growing. He tells the students to help the injured, and Gil Si-hyun's trying to be edgy says how he'll think about it if Lee begs him first, which makes Lee think how he should defo kill this guy. It's time for him to remove the Lich's barrier, asking for John Hoon's, Heimbull's, and Gil Si-hyun's help. He still objects, arguing the Archlich is an S-rank monster and they need to wait for professionals, but Lee wants to do it now because that would get him an achievement of historical class status. He tells them how they will kill the Lich too, and all three get scared. Lee asks Gil Si-hyun if he's really not coming then and how he really needs his help, so the guy finally accepts. They get ready for the hunt. We see the two teachers running towards the gate, but they notice the students fighting with the Lich head-on. Du Si-hyun says how they shouldn't interfere. The Lich sends an attack towards Heimbull. Spikes erupt from below, but he dodges thanks to Lee's call-out. Du Si-hyun's amazed at Lee's leadership skills. Lee dodges the spikes too, and he's excited for facing an Archlich, a monster usually only found in the Darkland. Lee's using his magic to mark the location of where the spikes will come from, so Lich decides to use a different attack now, which makes Lee order White to use one of her own. Lich's projectiles fly and White's ready to block them and deflect them too. Lee yells at the two students to go all out now, which they do, and they manage to pierce the Lich successfully. The monster screams in pain and sends more undead at them, but they're about to taste what women in the early 1800s tasted when disobeying their husbands, a knuckle sandwich. Jin Hoon straight up punches a sword, and while they're busy with the undead, the Lich uses this chance to channel his most powerful spell, the Rainbow Curse. It's 7 different curses, and each one is deadly. Lee knows this has to be the last phase of the fight then, and decides to deal with this attack all on his own, so the other students don't get killed by it. He uses his space control skill to deal with it, and the students can't believe he's going to take this entire attack alone. Jin Hoon asks Halen and White more about the curse attack, and she responds how the probability of not getting hit by a single one of the 7 curses is around 1%. The students can't believe Halen and White aren't worried, but White says how there's nothing to be worried about because her dad is extremely lucky, which confuses the students even more. Just then, Lee's AliExpress domain expansion cracks and he falls out with the students rushing in to help, but a confident smirk on his face makes them calm down. Tomorrow, Lee's thinking how everything went well last night, and he enters a room where Han Guban and Shim Wooju are waiting for him. Even the head of the Darkness Guild, So Ye-yeon, is there. Lee knows they're the three strongest people in all of Korea, and he presents them with his black magic purification potion. So Yeon offers to pay more for it, but Lee says how he has something else in mind. If they keep providing the mats, he'll keep making these potions for them, and in return he wants the ownership of the Darkland's 31st district, so he can construct a warp gate there. They are shocked to hear this, because making the warp gate in the Darkland is basically a mission impossible. Yeon asks Lee if he's aware that the devil has awakened in the 31st district, and that's why bro wants it. He says how he wants to set up a store there too, and asks them if they have a deal. After a bit of negotiation, they did strike a deal. A couple of days pass and it's the ranking test day, but Lee knows another attack will happen before, but this time he's even more prepared. The notification lets him know of the second main quest starting, and this time it's the devil's invasion of the academy. Lee wonders if everyone's safe, and learns that Charles and Sikan are in the library, which puts them in direct danger. He tells Boyle to gather everyone and move east, while he goes and helps Charles and Sikan. He's actually worried now because someone might actually die this time. The magic turrets are shooting at the monsters swarming from the demon gate, which gives Lee enough time to reach the library, which is already covered with the black magic, which will kill anyone who doesn't have black magic resistance, which is basically almost everyone but Lee. He spots Charles taking a nap, and sees her trembling when he gets close. He slams a potion down her throat which heals her just enough for her to tell Lee about Sion, who's at the annex getting wrecked by monsters from all sides like her name is Bonnie Blue. As Lee runs to the annex, he realizes that the owner of the gate might also appear. It's Lilith, the wife of the Great Devil. Lee knows that her coming to their world would immediately fail his main quest. He sees Sion trapped, and her body used for Lilith to take over. Lee's absolutely terrified now, since he knows that to stop Lilith from appearing he needs to get rid of Sion, which is something he could never do. He casts his regression magic, and summons 2 magic circles below and above her. He continues to channel his spell, but Sion opens her eyes, which are now glowing red. Lee falls down on his knee, with Sion approaching and in a demonic voice asking who he is. He introduces himself as the Dragon Slayer, which surprises the devil, while Lee keeps listing his titles, shocking the devil even more. He grabs Sion by the shoulder, looks the devil straight in the eyes and tells her that he'll destroy her. Sion's body begins to burn, hopefully her clothes too, but the devil makes her attack Lee, who just stands there and stops her attack with nothing but pure aura. He grabs her by the hand with a smile, and we see Sion's back, crying and jumping into Lee's embrace. Lee gets a bunch of legendary achievements from this, and feels like he's gonna faint after this battle. Lee collapses with Sion on top of him, a position I wouldn't mind being in. A bit later, he's recovered and checking the status of the quest, with it almost going perfectly well for him. He is worried how the demonization affected Sion mentally. White and Halen reach Lee and she hugs him crying because he got her hella worried. Lee meets with Yesun later, who thanks him for saving her daughter. Lee asks how Sion's doing, and after seeing her we see she leveled up from a baddie to a demon baddie. After checking her status, Lee realizes she's still not 100% safe from Lilith, but after she wakes up, the demonization even improved her curvature. She cries asking Lee what's gonna happen to her now, and he calms her down saying how everything's gonna be fine because he will protect her. He tells her mom that he'll start divine hunting starting today, to stop Lilith from awakening. Couple of days pass, with Lee visiting his new goth baddie daily, and she asks why didn't he just kill her back then, because that was the easier option. Bro whispers how he didn't want to lose her as a friend, but getting friend-zoned definitely wasn't on her to-do list today. She tells Lee how she wants to train and test these new demonic powers. She summons a powerful magic spell, and Lee explains how it's thanks to Lilith's power in her body that allows her to create mana organs. She asks Lee to help in her training, as she goes for an attack. After a bit of sparring, she asks Lee if he was hurt after he saved her from Lilith, and after he confirmed it, she asks if he's still in pain, but now he's good. She's glad to hear it, and Lee's glad that she's glad. Later, he's talking with Boomer Todoroki about the gate being done, with Han Guban saying how the gate is working way better than expected. Lee says how the gate can be used every 3 days, and they can auction the usage of it on the days they don't need it. Their meeting is interrupted by Lee's drone notifying him of an emergency, and Lee apologizes for asking them this but asks them to come with him now. The scene shifts to Sion's room and Vento reaches her there, and she's in big dookie now since the mansion is unguarded. He says how he wants her mana organ, and is this what we call it nowadays? Hold up bro, says he's actually not interested in women, which makes her disgusted for some reason. She mentions Lee, and this makes Vento giggle and take the role of Hisoka, saying how he'll wait for Lee to ripen before playing with him. Sion calls him Diddy type of crazy, but bro's done talking and appears in front of her in the blink of an eye. He reaches for her assets, but the power of Lee's jealousy makes him teleport between them immediately. This makes Vento almost bust a nut, but after seeing Lee's backup and Sision's pissed mom, he teleports away quickly. Lee lets Sision know how he's going to the Darkland and she wants to come with him, and usually he'd never allow this, but since she's gained Lilith's powers, he agrees to take her. The scene shifts to a couple of guys talking about a student buying this 31st district, but a pack of evil animals attacks them and Lee's here to save the day. He brought his harem with him and spots a new reincarnation of Lilith in a different body. He gets an emergency quest to stop her or else Sision dies, so he tells her to stand back and decides to face Lilith solo for now. She yells how she's gonna punish him now, and all I can say is smash. Lee goes live to gain power from his attention-seeker ability and gets more viewers than Ninja while streaming with Drake. This makes his powers grow enough for him to stand a chance versus Lilith, and she's surprised he can withstand her black magic. Lee uses his magic against her, but she dodges and goes for the counterattack, which Lee successfully parries. After a bit, he's able to land a fatal blow on Lilith, which splatters her blood like it's those kinds of days women have. He spots the remaining part of Lilith's soul and he decides to absorb it, which makes him learn that he has reincarnated in an older patch of the game. After completely absorbing Lilith's soul, he gets another legendary rank achievement and falls flat on the ground. The scene shifts to Siwon sitting in a bar in the 31st district, with people calling her filthy for having demon blood. Halen calms her down, but the guys want to escalate things further. But an old man who runs the bar says how any and all damages need to be paid, and how only fistfights are allowed. Lee, finally recovered, yells how he'll fight, and seeing Lee, the mercs aren't too pleased, but accept the duel nonetheless. And just a quick second later, the guy is kissing the floor like it's his wife. Carl, the SS rank owner of the bar and the chief of the district security, declares Lee the winner of the duel. The leader of the mercs introduces himself as Anton and apologizes for the behavior of his men. Anton leads the Black Oak mercenary group, and Lee lets him know how he's going after Alice's nest now. The guy doesn't want to follow Lee there, but Lee mentions how Anton survived the intervention of Yang San and is probably scared of encountering him again. The guy gets annoyed at Lee for talking like this despite his daughter getting killed in the last nest raid, but Lee says how she can still be saved. The guy gets pissed off even more now since it's been over 10 years that she died, but Lee says there is still a way. Anton calms down as Lee explains exactly how he could save his daughter. Anton says he and his mercs will come with Lee, but if he's lying, he's dead. Lee then meets with Gil Yi-hyun, and she explains how the goods and the manpower he asked for have reached the Darkland, and Lee shows her a place where they can mine black curium, a rare and precious ore. First, they gotta deal with the monsters and get the Black Oak mercs on their side. Two shadowy figures are spying on 31st District, and one of them says how he wants to test the new owner of it. He summons a special storm called the Madness of Corruption. Halen explains how it can corrupt people, so they need to evacuate. But Si-hyun doesn't want to leave, so this place gets destroyed and decides to stop the Madness of Corruption herself. Lee also gets an emergency quest to deal with it, or else Sion dies again, and he wonders if Yongsan Park is already here, since they're the only ones who could summon up this storm. Sion wants to tank the tornado until Lee gets back, and as the tornado hits her, she falls down on her knees but is still somehow able to endure it. A kid who summoned the storm is observing her, and his name is Jae-hoon, the Beastmaster. He gets spooked after seeing Lee clinging to the barrier of his moving sky island. Lee asks the boy if he's the one who summoned the storm, which he denies, and Lee knows the guy is lying, and despite having incredible power, he's still a kid, so Lee uses basic reverse psychology to make him admit that he did it. Lee then mentions Aries and Kwan, Jae-hoon's friends, and Lil Bro is surprised Lee knows them all. Lee gets angry at the boy for making it harder for him to find the Black Curia mines, and as a punishment orders him to do it and mine them instead. Lee also tells the boy to hand over the Gehenna's stone he used to summon the Madness of Corruption, and the boy obeys. As Lee leaves, he threatens to kill them all if they mess with his area again. Back to Sewon, who's about to die from the storm, and her last words were about to be, "I love you, Lee." But suddenly he appears in front of her saying they're leaving for the Alice's nest to bring this storm over there to help them wipe out the demons more easily. Back in the tavern, with people ready to evacuate, Halen notifies them that Lee has dealt with the storm and is taking it to Alice's nest, and the mercs should depart immediately to help Lee. While they're moving there, Lee explains that the tornado will deal with the demons but not Alice herself, so he'll need to deal with her personally. But seeing the huge aura in front means no easy task is ahead of them. Suddenly a bright flash appears, shooting a ray of light which literally pierces Lee's heart, leaving our boy dead on the ground. Simbo doesn't even realize what's just happened, but somehow manages to dodge the next attack directed at her. Alice appears in front of them, and realizing Lee's dead makes Simbo go berserk with her aura exploding and her body trembling as she fully adapts and conquers Lilith's power as her own. Simbo scares Alice, but Simbo is already at her throat, slamming the demon mommy down on the ground and making her shake in fear. Alice almost cries, but Simbo, taking the full control of the Demon Queen's power, orders Alice to bow, which she does, and with a swift motion Simbo decapitates her. Mercs arrive at the scene and seeing Lee dead makes White cry. Simbo's back to them but suddenly hears a voice saying how the time has come to fulfill the contract, and she sees that the Madness of Corruption is absorbing all the demons to merge them in a singular demonic entity known as Bel, the demon of lust and wealth. Even the main merc's daughter is about to be consumed, but with just a smile Belial makes the merc freeze in place. Simbo and White charge at him, both sending their attacks, but Bros is aura farming and deflecting them literally by doing nothing, which means the power gap is huge. Suddenly Lee wakes up saying he won't die easily. Talk about an absolute ass pull by the author, absolute plot armor. Lee takes out his sword to fight Belial, but Halen warns him that no matter how strong Lee is, Belial's stronger, but Lee is confident he can win. He calls Belial by a different name, Satanel, and this surprises him, but Lee calls himself the Apostle of Raphael as he charges at Belial. But we go back a bit to see what actually happened to Lee after getting pierced through his heart, and a notification lets him know that he was summoned here by a divine being, and Lee immediately realizes who it is, noting that he maxed out his luck stat just for this encounter. He calls this being by its many titles: the one who cut off the arms of the goddess of luck, the one who destroyed the sword of victory, and the one who sees the darkness beyond the truth. This being is amazed at Lee's knowledge. Lee knows that thanks to his maxed out luck, he was given a quest that triggers just when you're about to die. They have to gamble and Lee actually wins, which completes the quest and allows him to choose one legendary rank achievement. And he says how the one he wants is not on the list, and this being itself chose an achievement that was not on the list when it defeated the goddess of luck. This makes it almost kill Lee because there's no way he could ever know that. Lee trembles but comments how this being Dekra needs to give him any achievements he requires, or else the goddess of time will be pissed at her. Lee is bluffing since he knows literally all the details about both of these goddesses. Dekra actually falls for his bluff and Lee asks for Raphael's achievements and thanks her cockily with a sly smile on his face. She calls him an insolent brat but still enjoyed her interaction with him, and now we're back in the present. Belio refuses to believe Lee's actually Raphael's apostle, but his belief is proven wrong after Lee slices him up like a Sunday deli special. Killing Belio earns Lee a mythical rank achievement. He lands down and sees the merc boss trembling as he's about to kill his own daughter to end her suffering. But Lee stops him saying he can help her. He then leaves to dismantle Alice's nest, also consuming all the magic he can, and this creates a legendary rank gemstone similar to Gehenna's stone he's already got, and with it he can save Surbachi, the merc's daughter. After he's done, Gil Yi Hyen says how they can finally begin mining the black curium, which makes Lee happy. A bit later, Lee goes to an open area where he'll summon the gates to the realm of the afterlife with the new gemstone, which will allow him to save Surbachi. In this world, when a person dies, its soul is reborn in a new life, but the body remains in the realm of the afterlife. Lee then activates the stone, piercing the sky, which makes the souls escape into Lee's world in search of the physical form. He warns his comrades that they are about to be attacked by the souls. Jae-noon is still spectating when Kwon arrives, saying how two of them need to join the fight as well. Lee appears in front of them, which scares Jae-noon because he thinks Lee is the doppelganger king. Lee orders the kid to deal with the souls, but Kwon thinks it's sus that Lee is the doppelganger king. He swings his hammer at Lee, but Lee's able to duck down, which surprises Kwon. Lee's shitting his pants right now, realizing he only survived that swing because he happened to crouch down to pick up some black curium. Kwon apologizes and Lee bluffs again, which luckily works again as Kwon turns around in respect while internally Lee trembles in fear because he just accidentally escaped certain death. A bit later, Lee goes to an old man Geppetto who's the Yangsan Park Sky Island caretaker. Lee tells the old man how he wants to use black curium as optical artillery immediately and how he also wants to organize some souls from the realm of the afterlife. The old man stays silent for a moment but then sees through Lee's bluff, saying how he's not really the doppelganger king, and this scares Lee. The scene shifts back to the gates to the realm of the afterlife, with Seonol already worn out from holding the souls back. Suddenly a purple laser pierces the sky, disposing of the souls like they're yesterday's trash, and Seon immediately realizes this is Lee's sign for them to enter the realm of the afterlife. Back to Geppetto and Lee, where the old man asks him who he really is, so Lee comments how he comes from the future but the old man doesn't buy it. Lee calls the guy his grandpa, even using his full name and saying how if that's not enough he'll prove it to him, asking the Gramps to follow him. Geppetto tells Lee to stop pouring black curium in the optical artillery because that's gonna ruin it, but seeing the machine working normally makes the Gramps believe Lee's actually from the future. We go back to Sion and the squad as they enter the realm of the afterlife. The notification lets them know that they are being watched by the gods of death. Lee's surprised to see that even Halen is being awakened while in the realm of the afterlife. Lee says how this changes their plans and how they will never close the entrance to the realm of the afterlife. Back at the city, with demons invading all sides and students defending with all their might, Jin-hoon knows they're leveling up fast this way, but they're still nowhere close to dealing with all the undead coming from the portal. He also worries about Sion, but a huge explosion makes Bro realize he should be worried for himself. Even Lee feels it in the realm of the afterlife, so he decides to head back to check. The explosion knocked out most of the students, with another demonic incarnation appearing. She calls Jin-hoon strong, and seeing her, Han Bo-yul yells for Jin-hoon to run. She ends Bro flying, which almost kills him too. Jin-hoon decides to stop her, of course. Don't listen to the smart guy, and to the exact opposite actually. He tries to move but his body's frozen, and the demon baddie giggles out that it's time for him to die. Han Bo-yul realized that this incarnation is a manifestation of Jin-hoon's forgotten memories, though he never expected them to take the form of a demon. We go 10 years back, where Han Bo-yul was on a probation mission with his guild to hunt down the demon. This is when he met Jin-hoon the first time. A terrified young boy, but when Han Bo-yul approached him, the boy hushed him down with a calm voice, saying how there's a demon here, and Han Bo-yul saw the reflection of the demon in his eyes. He turns around to see where the demon is, but Jin-hoon hushes him down again, saying how the demon will be watching them. Han Bo-yul's guild took care of Jin-hoon, where they learned that the demon they were chasing birthed the boy during her human form. Back to present with him facing his literal mommy then. Lee barges in between them, saving Jin-hoon, naming the demon Mommy, Asmodeus, the female version of Asmongold. As he's about to kill her, Jin-hoon grabs Lee to stop him, which means he regained his memories back. But as Lee turned around, Asmodeus dug her hand deep into his intestines. Jin-hoon blames himself for that, but Lee reassures him he's fine, as he apologizes to Jin-hoon for this, but he has to slay the demons as the apostle of Raphael, which he does. The evil energy leaves the body of the girl and she falls unconscious. Back to the realm of the afterlife, where Subnyeon is hiding, while Yongin Park guys are fighting the devils. They rush out of the realm of the afterlife, with Halen charging after them. As they leave, a huge blast appears in the distance, hitting the devil and blasting his arm clean off. Halen grabs pieces of its body, and Subnyeon grabs her because she forgot she can't fly. But the mission is successful since they got a part of Balrog, the demon, as Lee ordered. Lee's back in the tavern later, ready to heal Surbichi. We get a time skip of a couple of days with all the undead almost completely killed and the gate closed. Lee's teacher tells him to return to the academy, even though he's clearly outgrown it. They will even allow people of any age and power to join the academy. Lee's happy to hear that, plus even the graduation will be held early, which means a lot of powerful people will be gathered at the same place. The following day, Jin-hoon meets with Lee and they're talking about all that happened yesterday. He even sees White will be attending school too since they've lifted the age restrictions. Lee pats her on the head saying she'll be the best student. He then gets a call from Gil Yi-hoon who informs him that a huge massive black thing has erupted from Alice's nest. He tells her to stop anyone from trying to enter it, but she can't help but feel amazed at this big beautiful black tower-like thing. Hwonbyeol's having typical Vegeta thoughts. Oh, I got stronger, but Lee's stronger still. He spots multiple shadows dashing around the academy, and he uses his new skill Wang Meiyong to stop them in place, but the shadows continue to move. One of them attacks him from behind in a cliffhanger. We go back to Lee, who's practicing swordsmanship versus magic. He's actually able to cut mana with his sword, but then another shadow dashing grabs his attention. Lee uses his mana domination skill to detect where this someone is and spots a place with blocked mana. The cliffhanger is not long as we go back to Hwonbyeol looking like an average Londoner. He's nearly stabbed to death. The attacks keep coming at him, and he isn't even able to see from who. But just before the fatal blows hits him, it is stopped by Lee chopping it up like his name is Frederick Chopin. The assassin falls dead on the ground, and Lee gets a new emergency quest that notifies him that all the students will be under attack until the end of the ranking exam. Hwonbyeol then falls on the ground, losing blood like he's giga menstruating. Lee takes him to the hospital and sends the message to the students to be wary of ambushes. Back to the big black beautiful thing, where Sion and Anton discuss what to do with it. Surbichi, looking hella fine, asks where Gil Yi-hoon is, and Sion explains how she's dealing with other guilds, one of which is Martin Company. Sion gets excited looking at this big black beautiful thing, while its sheer size scares Surbichi. We go back to Lee, who goes back to the assassin, who goes back to his lord. A woman calls the dead assassin an idiot for getting killed by a student, and Lee immediately recognizes her as Selen, a talented S-rank mercenary. Lee dashes away, appearing behind Selen, who gets terrified of his speed. She introduces under a fake name, but Lee calls her by her real one, which makes her pissed. But Bro calms her down, the good old bitch slap way. Lee turns away to look at the dead body for a quick moment, and she sees an opening, activating a distraction spell that blinds Lee as she uses this chance to escape. Lee actually wanted her to escape, because he knew if she told him anything about her mission she'd get Charlie kirked. The scene shifts to Charles and Anhae Rim entering the virtual space where they'll do their next exam. Here they watch a student named Chang fighting with another student named Dean to determine their ranks. Charles and An both decided to participate in the duels as well. A bit later, An is exhausted, having managed to rank in the top 100 out of 6,000 students, but is struggling in the current battle against a guy called Butcher. This guy's name is Choi, and he actually comes from the Dark Land. Suddenly the crowd buzzes how Lee won 7 duels in a row in an instant, so Amo forfeits her duel to go watch Lee. Choi is curious about this Lee guy. Lee wins 2 more duels, easy peasy, but seeing that his next opponent is Choi gets Lee a bit worried. Suddenly students scream how someone has been killed, and how they can't leave this virtual space, which triggers the third main quest for Lee, where he needs to find all the terrorists disguised as students and finish them off. Jin-hoon tells Lee how these guys somehow brought in swords that can bypass the restriction of not killing in this virtual reality, and Lee yells how everyone should hide until they are able to exit this place. A creepy guy who looks like he came from Squid Game approaches Lee, and Lee's actually a bit nervous now. The guy challenges him for a one-on-one duel, but Lee has something else in mind. He orders Halen to hack the system and live stream it. Lee let Salen escape earlier, so Halen could track her and find their hideout from which they can hack the virtual space, and has now lifted the no-death rule from the terrorists too. This gets these little pussies terrified immediately, and Halen notifies Lee that she's almost done hacking the exit too. A huge shadow of a colossal titan rises over Lee, freezing him in fear. Lee yells for everyone to escape, and even Choi is scared for Lee to face this huge-ass Spartan-looking titan solo. Lee reassures Choi how he's gonna be fine, so the guy listens and runs away. Lee knows these guys have summoned a replica Ares, the god of war, to this virtual space, so it doesn't have its usual full power, but still dealing with him and the terrorists at the same time will be bothersome. The guy taunts Lee saying how it doesn't matter. Lee hacked their hack but then just gets squashed like a bug under Ares' sword. The only thing Lee cares about though is if Halen is live streaming all of this. He takes out his heavenly sword, Ares swings his sword and they clash like Cell vs Gohan Kamehameha. And Aries crumbles like me when a girl actually talks to me. The dual arena exam is cancelled and the students have to deal with twin-headed trolls again. White comes out with measly 27k points, being second ranked just behind Lee, and all the students are slowly starting to realize Lee's reaching godlike status, while they're still stuck in the dirt. Lee comes out with a score of 35k, reaching first place, and at this point the students are just used to it. But this weird-ass pose keeps Lee in the loser rank despite his strength. Lee and Seon go to the southernmost part of the Dark Land, and Lee wants to get to the island on the other side. They fly above the sea, but an S-grade Kraken appears about to turn this scene into an average episode. Or maybe not, because Seon completely loses it, because her makeup got ruined, and turns the Kraken into minced meat. Even Lee's shocked seeing her like this. They reach the island where they find two swords emitting insanely powerful auras. Lee explains how these two swords were wielded by Archangel Luciel, and his demon form Lucifer. The after-image of Lucifer appears presenting a challenge. They need to draw one sword and attack him. Lee goes for the holy sword, and Seon goes for the demonic one. The burst from the sword almost kills them, but Lee's still standing completely exhausted. Seon too, and Lucifer compliments their endurance. Lucifer warns Lee that the world's end will happen soon and asks him to strike him now. Both of them swing their swords and slay the entity, gaining another sea of achievements. Later in the academy, Lee's talking to Han Buyul, who's still hurting from the stab experience. Nadia greets them, and Lee turns into Andrew Tate again, being giga-misogynistic towards her. She's withholding Niagara Falls down there and asks Lee to meet her father, who wants to compete against Yangsan Park, but needs to speak to Lee first. Her father Changsun wields a bamboo weapon that can provoke the sea dragon, so that's why Lee needs to intervene. But hearing he's already here startles him as a huge lightning bolt crashes near them. The hidden quest to conquer the sea dragon appears, and Lee knows this is a big danger, so he grabs Nadia and tells her how they need to leave quickly. He teleports them to the airport where Changsun is, and bro looks like Brian Johnson, that forever young guy. He asks his daughter if this guy is her boyfriend, and Lee tells them how the sea dragon has awakened because of the bamboo weapon. Changsun doesn't understand why the dragon is awoken now since he's had this weapon for years, and Lee explains how even more divinities besides the sea dragon have awakened, but first he needs to deal with the sea dragon and yoink Changsun's bamboo weapon. Changsun hands it over, and Lee promises how he'll keep everyone safe. This starts the fourth main quest for Lee, where he needs to deal with all these divinities to prevent a global war. The scene quickly shifts to the 31st district of the Dark Land, where Siyun and Serbichi are seeing something huge appearing in the distance, behind the fog. Lee appears in front of Shenron from Temu, asking to negotiate, but his body freezes just from being near this powerful divinity. Lee mutters how he wants to save humanity, and asks the dragon to lend him his powers, and surprisingly the dragon accepts. Lee hands him the bamboo and the sea dragon disappears into the water, with Lee understanding that all these events mean that the day of the Great Revolution has begun. Back to Siyun again, she feels the presence of Lilith, who is quickly moving towards her. Seishun's worried about this, but Lee knows being worried won't stop her, so bro's already channeling a spell that summons the sea dragon to the Dark Land. Lee asks to borrow back the bamboo, but this time in the form of a sword, which the dragon accepts as long as Lee praises him far and wide, so Lee summons multiple drones and broadcasts his dragon ass-licking to the entire world. The dragon can feel the power from the views, and if this was the case in real life, Mr. Beast would run the galaxy. The dragon flies towards Lilith to stop her, and his dragon jizz slams into her, but she manages to block it, so bro sends more backshots towards her. Lee and Seishun use this chance to attack her from the back, and Seishun gives her a new belly button. Lilith cannot believe Seishun managed to get that sword, but Lee's coming with the next attack. She puts up a barrier, which he splits in half, and at this point her entire body will just be belly buttons. How much they're piercing her. She dies painfully, which gives Lee pages of new achievements, and the system lets him know that he's completed the fourth main quest. It also raises the difficulty, which Lee's not a big fan of. Now we see Han Buyul in some kind of limbo, where a yokai king Igoduxini appears asking Han Buyul if he wants to use his magic to protect the people, which he confirms. Now we see Sergei actually fighting Rudolph the reindeer on steroids, also known as Igoduxini. The creature stops its attack mid-swing. Well, actually Lee froze the monster in time and space. Two of them move away, and the monster punches the air like a complete idiot. Lee then opens a portal out of which comes Han Buyul, and seeing this pure aura entrance startles the monster. Lee tells Han Buyul to not kill the monster and actually tame it as a minion. Han Buyul releases so much aura that aura borealis lights ain't shit. Later, back at the class, students are learning about the Amazon, which is inhabited by elves and fire dragons and a huge-ass world tree. The teacher says how the top 100 students will be sent there for a while, and hearing this, Lee remembers that the third disaster is about to start. With all this shit happening, this kind of feels like Earth recently. Sidian's stuck in the Dark Land thinking about Lee, and when Serbichi appears and calls her the wife of the district owner, Sidian's cheeks blush giga red as she says how they're just friends. Serbichi suggests both of them go to Amazon to help Lee, and Sidian, acting like a tsundere, says how she'll do it only because Serbichi is asking, but my demon baddie knows what's up. Dusuk's telling students in Amazon how the area is rather safe because there's always triple S heroes around here, and Lee comments how meeting these heroes depends if the elves will attack them or not. Hearing him know about this continent as well surprises the students, asking him if there's anything he's not good at. And bro rapid fire responds by saying romance, which just proves to the students that no matter how strong you are, you can still be socially awkward as hell. Lee starts apologizing profusely, just proving this point. We go to the town of the elves where they talk about the humans who arrived to Amazon, and the elf chief Gallowin finds this hella sus. Messenger barges in saying how a human came to their town, and Lee walks in with la 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 la, it's the motherfucking D-O-double-G music blasting in the background. Gallowin immediately uses his magic to stop Lee in his place, and Lee realizes that these elves actually are stronger than he is right now. Lee tries to explain politely how a huge war is coming to Amazon, which definitely doesn't sit well with the elves. Sion and Surbici reach Amazon and are immediately attacked by a giant snake dragon which gets its head circumcised almost immediately. The triple S rank Knights of the Round Table Ian and Dumont arrive, saving the students. Lee's doing his usual op magic shenanigans in the sky, and Choi gets a random ass upgrade and gains the powers of the Knights of the Round Table, while Lee and Gallowin are chatting in the sky. The elf Gramps knows that if the invasion of the underworld snake dragons continues, everything's going to hell, when suddenly a hella hot mommy appears. Avnil the fire dragon chief, Ian the icebird's mother's also here. Lee knows he cannot 1v1 any of them and needs to keep the situation from escalating, which is going to be hard because Avnil thinks Lee's the one who started this quest. Gallowin says how they need to hear Lee's side, and Ian agrees. Lee then explains how he can use the emergence of these underworld snake dragons to enter the underworld himself and get the Holy Grail hidden there. Avnil flicks her finger saying he's not worth keeping alive, and a huge fire swallows Lee whole. Students seeing this get scared, but suddenly Ian Hiram gets upgraded to a Knight of the Round Table too, which triggers a hidden quest for her to draw the Galahan's sword. She immediately sprints off to find it so she can save Lee. Ian and Dumont decide to help Ian Hiram by killing everything in her path, and just as she's about to reach the sword, the three boomers fly in to stop her. Avnil actually kills the snake dragon behind her, saying how they're here to help her since the Great War has already begun. A huge tremor shakes the earth, which causes more underground creatures to emerge. We see Lee lying on the ground thanking his plot armor again. He checks the quest window trying to come up with a strategy on how to tackle the Knight of the Round Table quest. He remembers the legend of King Arthur, and this inspires him to spend 100k points on something. That something being a huge-ass giant glowing light in the sky representing King Arthur's soul, and he summons Excalibur, which immediately draws aggro of all the monsters. Rim immediately figures out that King Arthur's voice sounds awfully similar to Lee's, so she starts running and calls Ian and Dumont to go with her to get the Galahan's sword, explaining that that's the fake Excalibur used as a diversion. Lee unlocks Jester class, which further increases his strength based on the attention he gets. Ian and Dumont stay behind to stop the monsters from chasing Rim, but another huge-ass snake dragon appears wanting a bite of her ass, but Lee yoinks her high in the sky and saves her life that way. He takes her directly to the sword and she pulls it easy peasy, which triggers the fifth main quest, Holy Grail War. Lee sends the signal to Halen, who instructs Dusek to seal the entrance to the underworld, which he quickly does. Lee tells Rim the plan, how they need to kill the remaining monsters, and Sion appears behind him like, "Sir." "Yes, sir." Lee's surprised but glad to see her and Surbici here, as they enter a huge-ass cave in search of the Holy Grail. Gramps and Mommy Dragons are surprised to learn Lee's still alive, while Dusek thinks how he did what he could, but isn't strong enough to fully seal the entrance to the underworld. But then Han Guban, Sion Amam and Boomer Todoroki come to support them, and Halen explains how Lee's coming back in 30 minutes, so they just need to hold on for that long. The war rages on, and 30 minutes are almost up. That's 29 minutes and 30 seconds longer than I can last you know where. As the countdown reaches 0, Lee, like Shinkansen, pierces out of the ground holding the Holy Grail and with it completing the fifth main quest. Lee unlocks the Jester God class, which previously belonged to Jake Paul. Later in his room, the status window lets Lee know he's gained God status finally, and now needs to complete the past, which will level him up to middle-level divinity. He lays down and activates the Trace of the Past system, which teleports him back into his past. He spawns in the first VR game he's ever played, which is a completely different game than where he was just a moment ago. He then teleports to the second VR game he's ever played and suddenly feels incredible pain swarming over his body. The system forcibly plunged him out of the Trace of the Past back to his world, where a huge-ass tentacle monster is coming out of the portal. It almost kills Jin Hoon, who's saved by Han Boyle at the very last moment. Dusok uses his heaven-breaking sword to attack this divinity, but the attack just seems to piss it off. Dusok knows only one person can deal with this monster, but White lets them know how Lee's still asleep. Sion flies towards his room, but just then Lee reaches the battlefield. It sends a back attack towards Lee that obliterates anything that's not a divinity, but bro's here to literally aura farm as he blasts the tentacle, creating a tentacle soup. Plus he did it by using Dusok's heaven-breaking sword ability. Lee doesn't understand how he can use this ability, nor why he was teleported into different games he's played, but right now there's that giant creepy eye he has to deal with first. Lee tells Sion that they should head towards where everyone else is, where Dusok is just buying time defending, but then sees Lee wielding his strongest ability like it's nothing, which makes him realize Lee is definitely the main character. The heavenly demon that Dusok's made a contract with lets him know how he should help Lee at all costs. It gives Dusok even more power, and Lee tells him to focus on the legs while he deals with the main body. Lee knows it's going to be hard to survive, not for him, but for the rest of the guys here, and he doesn't want anyone to die. He lunges towards the main body with Dusok slicing off tentacles that are trying to stop Lee. Lee enters the abyss from which the monster is coming from. The scene shifts to Gil Yi-hyun, who's doing her best to gather as much support as possible for Lee. Dealing with a single tentacle requires at least an S-rank hero, but the report lets her know how Lee already solo made contact with the main body. Lee gets closer to the eye and uses his time barrier to contain the creature. Two of them will stay trapped in this domain until one of them dies, and it's going to be a tough 1v1 since Lee's dealing with high-level divinity now. He takes out his sword and this goofy-ass bamboo stick and goes in for an attack. Lee fights the tentacles for a couple of minutes, which feels like days in this time barrier, and the prolonged battle destroys both of Lee's weapons. He barely manages to parry the monster's next attack, but is now left completely weaponless. He blocks the next tentacle with his Holy Grail and is feeling completely exhausted right now. The only thing he's got left is the Holy Grail, which is not really an offensive weapon, and Lee starts doubting that a low-level divinity like him could win against a high-level one. Lee decides to use the Holy Grail's wish to save this world, but is a tad bit too late as he's gained a new bowel in the form of a tentacle. He immediately activates the Holy Grail's wish, and a blinding light starts destroying the monster. Lee looks above and sees the one-armed martial artist with the golden eye. Everyone's standing outside just waiting to see what's going to happen, and with friends like these, who needs enemies? Sion's also worried, but that's not going to really help Lee. The time barrier Lee put up earlier collapses, and Lee is carried out by the shining figure guy. Everyone immediately realizes that this is the legendary one-armed martial artist with the golden eye, with Jin-hoon recognizing him as his father. The guy drops Lee like a bag of potatoes and flies back into the abyss and literally in 1 second defeats the monster and closes the portal. A couple of months pass and Lee is leaving the academy, with Duso coming to say goodbye, congratulating him and his friends on graduating. Lee thanks him with a kind smile as he's already planning his next goal. Season 1 of the Manhwa ends here, and we get an even longer time skip now and see a place covered with snow with hooded people gathering in a bunker and saying how the Frost Lich's expansion is growing and they need help from a high-level hero or they'll be forever cut off from the rest of the world. A man in black approaches a kid offering to take him to a warm place and even give him some food, but the boy refuses, saying he doesn't talk to strangers. Lee's live streaming this, saying how people like this guy bait these poor kids with food and shelter, and the guy gets mad hearing this, but after Lee takes his hoodie off and introduces himself in white with a choreographed K-pop entrance that leaves the man in black physically cringing. The man in black's mission was to take this kid who is a new human, basically someone born in the great cataclysm that happened 3 years ago, which makes them extremely powerful, but first he needs to take out this cringe Lee guy. The boy yells out and with his voice alone stops the man from moving, and Lee tells the suit guy how the Martin company he works for isn't really known for raising these new humans in a nice way. The suit guy sends a fire attack at Lee, and the boy's worried it's gonna kill him. Were these guys living under a rock to not know who Lee is? White stops the attack easily, and with a quick hand motion Lee slams the guy back in the wall. Lee approaches the kid and asks him if he's heard about the Hero Academy in Korea, explaining how he comes from there and can take the boy there if he wants. The boy wants to be a hero, so he accepts. But just then the alarm triggers, letting them know how Frost Lich is about to attack their base. The boy gets poopy pants, but Lee calms him down, saying how he and White will deal with it. The boy asks if both of them are level 8, and we learn that after the Great Cataclysm, the ranking system has changed, where we have 10 levels now, as you can see here. The soldiers get ready to defend the base, but Lee just strolls in and, removing his coat again to have the flamboyant entrance, says how they'll deal with the Lich. The scene goes to the Martin Company's headquarters, where Julia Martin greets Gil Jang-hyun, the older brother of Gil Seon-hyun. This nerd was a chairman of their family's guild but lost the spot to his sister Gil Yi-hyun, and Julia Martin's got some twisted plans involving this loser. She takes him to a huge underground bunker where they have machines that force adjustments onto the new humans, with experiments already happening. She explains how their subjects can easily take out level 7 heroes, and Gil Jang-hyun asks what it would take for them to be able to beat level 8 heroes. She smirks hearing this greedy bastard as he thinks how his sister stole his position with the help of that level 8 Lee moron, and all bro cares about right now is revenge. Lee's already dealt with the Lich and even sent the boy to the academy, and while exploring this dungeon he sees someone curled up with the bright spotlight on them like their husband was just shot in the neck, and they're a mourning widow. He approaches the half-demon half-dragon Loli, who says how her mom went to buy milk a couple of days ago. Lee asks if her mother is Carvian, which the girl confirms, and Lee figures that this means that the Dragonkin War is about to start. He tells the girl he'll find her mom, which puts a smile on her face. Lee tells White he's ditching her for now because he's going to a dangerous place known as the Chaos. Level 10 beings exist here, so it's going to be dangerous for him too. The scene now shifts to Du Seok, who's thinking most of his students surpassed him in power, so he needs to train to level up too, and I think that almost losing your liver is not really the training he's had in mind. He can't even track the attacker at all, while the shady guy is literally standing in front of him. Its eyes pierce Du Seok's soul, and after a quick battle, all of Du Seok's attacks were completely nullified. Slim Shady goes in for another attack but steps back after quick sword attacks come his way, and it's Nadia who's come to save the day. Seeing Dusuk faint means he's not okay. Who's the real Slim Shady now? With these rhymes, Shady attacks Nadia, now sending her flying back, but then Halen sends her a quick strategy on how to deal with adjusted new humans, and there's so much text that by the time she gets to the half of it, she'll be long gone. She scrolls in panic and spots one important tip to send all her attacks at once, which she does, and kills the Shady guy instantly. Now we're introduced to Fayan, the demon dragon tribe lord, who's talking to Carvian as she offers her life to him to save her tribe. This pisses the emo bro off, and legit they're two different tribes. One called Demon Dragon, and the other Dragon Demon Tribe. Crazy. She explains how the massacre that happened between their tribes was caused by the evil deities, and not her tribe, but Fayan doesn't buy it, so he decides to kill her for coming here to lie in his face. When Lee miraculously appears to stop him in the form of a hologram, Fayan destroys Lee's illusion, but another one appears behind him, so Fayan orders Lee to introduce himself, which he does, saying he's the Jester God. Fayan goes for another attack, but Lee casually stops it, which scares the Demon Dragon tribe lord. Lee says he's here to save this mommy behind as he fingerguns Fayan and teleports the two of them away. Fayan orders his men to find them both and kill them. Lee teleports them back in the cave, with her explaining how this will just start a war between their tribes. Lee explains how if they find Belial, they'll have proof that evil deities committed the massacre long ago, which is going to be a bit tough because Demon Dragon soldiers are already here for the two of them. Lee takes out his Dragon Bloodhunter wand, which sucks their magic dry like they've just received the best sloppy toppy ever. They fall down on the ground, but Fayan is here too, who still doesn't believe Carvian when she says how Belial was behind the massacre. She falls down on her knees, saying that she'll let him kill her with no resistance if he allows her to become Sherlock Holmes and investigate Belial first. She says how this human gave her this info, and Fayan wonders if this human is to be trusted while Lee's losing control over the wand that is sucking everything around because it has a mind of its own. A thought mind at that. A bit later, Lee explains how he'll make Belial confess as he opens a portal to the chaos where he's hiding. We see Belial also doing some profuse sucking, soul sucking in the chaos. He also swallows the soul, so he's not a spitter, and is now strong enough to leave this dimension and go to the celestial dimension. His butler reports that Fayan and Carvian are still fighting, and Belial's excited to hear that, because if they annihilate each other, the entirety of the chaos will be his to rule, and he would succeed if it was not for that meddling kid who brought Fayan secretly close to hear everything. And seeing Lee behind all this doesn't sit too well with Belial. Belial says how his king spoke of Lee as the hope and a variable of this world, and Lee's surprised to hear this, asking what he means, and what he means is just attacking them all straight on. But of course Belial is defeated just a couple of moments later. He wonders why did his king Lucifer forsake him, as Lee explains how dealing a fatal blow to Belial will be hard in this dimension. Belial explodes with aura, and Lee buys a new ability which he instantly uses on Belial, basically pulling him into Lee's domain. Lee asks why the hell did Lucifer call him a variable. He takes out the sword Lucifer wielded in his angel form, which is more like a handle than a sword at this point. Belial's body starts dispersing in Lee's domain, so Bro gives in and comments how he has no idea what Lucifer meant too, but he knows that the world is constantly dying and Lucifer is giving it his all to stop it, and if he called Lee a variable, it means that he's hoping Lee can help him save the world. Did we just get the main Satan as the good guy? Is this real world? Lee wonders if there's a deeper reason behind him being summoned in this end-of-the-world game, and takes out his holy grail thinking how he wanted to use its single wish to return to his own world. But now that's changed, as he wishes for the fragment of chaos, which will greatly empower Lee and help him reach the final stage more easily. However, the power of this fragment is beyond the holy grail, and the only thing it can grant Lee is to fight the current owner of it, so he accepts this offer and uses up his wish for it. We now see Lucifer confused as to why did God forget them, vowing to save the planet. One armed martial artist with golden eyes, Gangchiel, approaches Lucifer, explaining how the outer gods will help him when he breaks through. But Lucilu doesn't want to accept the end of the earth whether he breaks through or not. Gangchiel says how that's impossible, so Lucifer immediately flies to kill him. Carvian and Phaon bury the hatchet, but a bright light pierces the sky of the chaos, and they immediately realize it is from Gangchiel and Lucifer in fighting, and they decide to join the fight to stop Lucifer from opening the heaven beyond the heaven. Lee finds himself in the wrecked ruins of the Dungeon of Fortuna, the goddess of luck, where a voice is challenging him to basically do some gambling, as the deck of cards spawns in front of him. How lucky, but what did you expect, bro? Wins all 4 games, and for the next game he's going to play Equipment Enhancement game, where he will randomly roll a number from 1 to 10 times, and he needs to upgrade his weapon to +9, and if he fails he will lose his Lucifer's sword. He begins the game, and of course he beats this one too, but becomes greedy and rolls an enhancement again, and at this point bro is literally luck incarnate. He beats the next game as well, with the voice telling Lee how he actually doesn't want to duel him, since Lee is extremely lucky, which is not what Lee expected at all. The voice explains how before gods there were titans who ruled, who were overthrown by Kronos, which Lee already knew, but he didn't know that the titans were about to come back. If Lucifer opened the heaven beyond heaven, Lee figures this is actually different from the game he's played, and he asks the voice what would happen to humans then, and yeah, total annihilation. The final game remains for Lee to unlock the Fragment of Chaos, and now he needs to stop the Titans. He will get to use the Fragment of Chaos while doing this game, so Lee accepts and decides to go to the realm where the Titans are imprisoned and finds any potential allies. He teleports to the Abyss, the grave of the Elder Gods, where a chain comes right at him, but Lee vanishes as we are introduced to a new demon baddie. Lee appears behind her, calling her Ophelia the Titan Hunter, and she asks who he is. He asks for her help with stopping the Titan Hunters from coming to Earth, which she calls impossible since they're under the Titan Hunters' constant watch. Lee explains how Lucifer is trying to open heaven beyond heaven, which will allow for that to happen, and he asks again if she would be willing to help him now. Of course, Bro's about to record the hell out of her, promising her that this will turn her into a legend, something like Lisa Ann. They find the Titans and start swatting them like flies. Carvian and Fayan reach the dimension where Lucifer is, and he takes out the Fragment of Chaos, which startles Gangkiel since there's only 5 of those in existence. With it, Lucifer vanishes Gangkiel to an unknown dimension, and then starts to split the ground in order to open the heaven beyond heaven. Lee appears and uses his Fragment of Chaos to stop Lucifer, but is a bit too late as the giants start dropping down like the Syndrome. Lee decides that the best option for now is to trap them in the heaven beyond heaven so he can save the Earth. However, this fails him the Fortuna's quest, and he loses the Fragment of Chaos, but luckily he gains a lot of other perks, like his name is Peter Perker. A random-ass guy summons Cthulhu to wage war in the United States, where Lee is right now. Lee's goal is to find a new Fragment of Chaos, and he doesn't have a lot of time now. The server services warn the president how even level 8 heroes are dying and they need to evacuate. Suddenly Lee appears in their room saying he's got a solution. Whoa, a bald US president. This is like catching a shiny Pokemon. Lee explains how Cthulhu is after the Fragment of Chaos in America, and Lee asks the president to give him the fragment, swearing he'll use it to save their country. El Presidente agrees and they shake on it. The guy who summoned Cthulhu, Peter, is going through an ecstasy right now, but he snaps out of it after Cthulhu's tentacles get slashed. Lee goes in for another attack, and the guy sends more tentacles at him, and Lee keeps making Cthulhu sushi, finally reaching the guy but then disappearing and summoning a huge magic circle above him. The light beam from the circle deep-throats the guy to hell and back. Sika Bro pulled a get-out-of-jail-free card and retreated into Cthulhu's dimension. Lee waves him goodbye with a smug smile, knowing escaping from this dimension is near impossible. We see White and Dragon Demon Girlie are playing with magic, but White's body shakes as she senses someone with the same energy as hers. Lee teleports to her asking what's up, and she says how she can feel the being with the same energy as hers approaching quickly. Lee decides to take her to the chaos, as we see Gangkiel talking to Carvian and Fayan about Lee trapping the giants in the abyss. Suddenly the place shakes and a huge pure-blooded dragon rocking complete nudity appears above them. He is the great divine Kephrem and Lucifer's friend, and is here asking for help. Lee teleports here with White behind, and seeing the dragon here surprises Lee. He offers Kephrem the Fragment of Chaos so he would leave them alone, but Bro's currently interested in the little girl behind like his name is Jeffrey the Big E. Gangkiel backs Lee, but the dragon says how there's no need for a fight if he hands the girl over, which kinda is saying let's fight. Lee says how he's never giving her away, and the dragon gets enraged hearing this, but Lee takes out his trusty Op Dragon Hunter wand to block the monster's attack. He goes live to get bonus power from the attention-seeking trait he has, and after surviving that attack, Lee gets thrilled to be challenged again after so long. Lee gets 2 billion viewers on his live stream, and what the actual fuck is that? It's like the entire population of India tuned in at once, skyrocketing his stats. However, this is still not enough since Lee lacks useful items to fight this dragon, which he had while playing the game, and wonders if there's a way for him to get them through the Trace of the Past system. He needs 10 minutes in this system, but Gangkiel can't hold for that long. Suddenly, a group of heroes attack the dragon from the back, and it's Lee's old classmates who attack the dragon and are here to stall as much as possible. They saw Lee livestream and came, but this just pissed off the dragon even more. White cries out for Lee to hurry up and save them all, and he hops in the heaven beyond heaven. This levels him up to an exalted rank, and he decides to hide here while using the Trace of the Past system. Gangkiel tells Jin-hoon to tap into his mom's powers to become stronger, explaining how before she became the demon she was an angel known as Cherubim. Jin-hoon listens to him and uses this power, while Cien, wielding the full power of Lilith, gets ready to attack the dragon, which already gets slammed in the belly by upgraded Jin-hoon. Lee meditates to activate the past system. His classmates keep on fighting, stalling as much as possible, but after 20 long minutes all of them are nearly done. Lee finally comes back calling the dragon a lizard, which is basically the N-word for the dragons. The students laugh at his carelessness while Lee yells how it's time to end this. The dragon senses Lee's power has grown immensely, where he's even stronger than Lucifer right now. This makes the dragon kneel down in front of Lee, and Lee decides to spare him and tells him to go back to Lucifer. The dragon asks for an honorable death, but Lee tells him to live and find his new purpose. After the dragon leaves, we have a new problem. Jin-hoon and his mother's power, which gained control over him just now. Gangkiel and Lee run in to save him as Jin-hoon finds himself in limbo. Unable to move, he hears his mom's voice, and I would call this woman mommy too, not gonna lie. She slowly walks towards him, and with each step she takes, Jin-hoon feels more agony in his entire body. She tells Jin-hoon to stay here if he wants to live, and his father to survive too. Jin-hoon breaks down and starts to cry as he gives in. Gang-kel was able to drive out the evil divinity from Jin-hoon and calm him down for now, and as they leave, Seon approaches Lee. They stand together in an awkward silence which is like every single interaction you ever had with girls. Without saying a word, Lee walks towards the entrance to heaven beyond heaven with intention to close it using the fragment of chaos. The scene shifts to Peter, the Cthulhu summoner guy, as he walks towards the Martins family vault with the security guards trying to stop him, but bro gets rid of them faster than your ex got rid of you. He walks in and decides to test the strength of the ghouls here, and is able to take them out easily, but knows if he faced more of them he would have lost. He almost got backstabbed but his body morphed and avoided the hit, and thinks how recruiting these ghouls will definitely be helpful. He sends the ghouls in the dimensional rift. Julia Martin reaches the vault now and is hella confused as literally her family work is all gone and they have no idea who or how took them. Lee's done with his task and Seon thanks him, saying, but bro responds how he should be thanking her, as she comments how she'll give him way more reasons to be grateful. Lee tells Seon about Peter and his dimensional rift, saying how if they stop him and go into his dimension, that will allow all of them to get even stronger. Lee's so excited thinking about growing stronger that it scares poor White, but Lee just falls deeper into his thoughts, which doesn't really help. Now Seon's the one feeling the rush as she comments how she can't wait to kill this Peter Parker guy, and seeing her like this spooks Lee. The boy almost beats my boy up, but he doesn't falter, still saying it's wrong, so the boss feeds him a tasty knuckle sandwich. But this GigaChad still says it's wrong, so the boss gives him the soccer ball treatment. The guy falls next to Peter, who says how he's the only one with consciousness here, so he grabs the boss, sends him flying away and begins to walk towards the safe. He opens it like it's no biggie, and decides to basically become Robin Hood and give this money to people who need it most. The owner of the bank is now talking to Lee, but Lee says how the bank truly works without morals, and the only way for it to become good again is for him to buy it. The owner comments how even if he had the money, that's still no easy task, and Lee slams a black card on the table, which means he's basically like an ambassador. Lee buys 51% of the bank, making him the majority owner, and a bit later reaches Peter, bitch slapping him for taking 51% of his money. Peter runs away, but Lee teleports behind him with another bitch slap, and just as Peter stands up, another bitch slap sends him flying. Lee says how no one can steal his money, and says how he'll show Peter how helping people can be done legally too. I mean, yeah, if you have infinite money hacks. Lee orders Halen to lower the interest rates from 26% to 3%, and also give good job offers to people in need to help them out even more that way. Peter thinks Lee is lying because even if Elon Musk was your dad and Jeff Bezos your mom, you wouldn't be able to afford this, so he tries attacking Lee, who easily dodges his attacks and bitch slaps the bro again. Peter escapes in his dimensional rift again, and somehow this is exactly what Lee wanted him to do. Seoyeon laughs, saying how it would have been more merciful to just kill the guy, as she pets White and starts tripping about how she would be his daughter if Seoyeon married Lee, but then literally starts to sweat from embarrassment, realizing what she's thinking about. Peter cannot believe Lee's grown so powerful, and he wants to go to an unknown dimension to level up even more, but knows that that could be detrimental to innocent people in his world. Bro Gen then goes to 31st District of the Darkland to train there, thinking Lee would never come to such a place. But Lee at this point, straight up bullying Peter, appears and says how he owns this place too. He goes in for another bitch slap, and poor Peter runs back towards his dimension again. He's so confused as to how Lee can detect him and reach him this quickly, so he decides to go to the opposite side of the world, in South America. But Lee's waiting for him there, so this poor loser runs back to his dimension again, thinking how Lee has to be corrupt too, since he owns so many territories and banks across the world, which just fuels Peter more to get revenge. We see Gil Yi-hyun and Lee talking now, and she asks for the reason Lee bought this huge land with just low-level monsters and no resources. Lee laughs and doesn't really say, but thinks how Peter will probably open the other world soon, and we go back to Peter on the brink of madness. Getting tortured by Lee both mentally and physically is taking its toll, so bro has no other choice but to open the portal to the unknown world. Huge earthquakes begin to happen on the land Lee just bought, and just a moment later a village appears, and a couple more moments later a whole-ass medieval town. Lee comments how he'll explain it all on his live stream later, but says how in empty areas throughout the world these random villages and towns will begin spawning. In these villages are dimensional trades who buy and sell stuff through different worlds, and if this planet's forces try to fight them, they might summon even more powerful forces from various dimensions. Lee orders Gil Yi-hyun to take care of them and form good alliances, and just casually strolls away. Lee's live streaming now as he enters one of these interdimensional shops, and is greeted by Kellogg, the achievement shop owner. Lee decides to sell off the achievements he doesn't need, and Kellogg offers Lee 11 million DP, which is a currency they use, for this achievement. They shake hands on it, and Lee goes to the taming shop where Rhea the owner greets him. Lee gets a taming tattoo here, which allows him to either tame or absorb highest level monsters and demons. She asks for 3 million DP for the tattoo, since Lee got the most powerful one, and hearing this price shocks him. He then teleports away, and we see a guy spying on him this entire time. This person comes to Kellogg and offers a legendary achievement called the one who endures pain worse than death. Kellogg doesn't really want to buy it, since this type of stuff usually brings bad luck, but offers measly 2 million DP for it. The guy asks for 10 million DP, like the last guy got. But Kellogg doesn't budge, so Peter tries to haggle some more, and Kellogg increases the price to a whopping 2.5 million, like a true Pawn Star. Peter begs for more, and they settle on 3 million. We go to one Gangshale, who's talking to his son Jin-hoon, who promises to go to the demon realm and break the demon bonds put on him and his mom. Gangshale explains how he'll need to defeat his brother in the demon realm, which is no easy task, and Jin-hoon decides to use the taming tattoo to absorb all the demons along the way to grow stronger, so he can defeat his big bro. Lee's grinding in the Pacific Ocean now, but a sudden emergency quest pops up for him to stop otherworldly monsters from invading. He flies there quickly as we see these weird cloud-looking ass monsters, Epity, Tunicle, and Spore. The guild Dawn Sword is trying to stop them, with Chang Yun leading them. Suddenly Han Buell comes to the rescue and tells the guys to retreat while he handles the cloudy monsters. Lee yells for him to stop because he's here to absorb them all as he activates his taming tattoo. Bro summons Ancient Kraken, which falls down on all the monsters, and Lee tells Buell to seal the space now as he goes in to finish the last monsters remaining in the den. White calls for Lee, and they've changed her name like 20 times so far. Anyways, she wants to come with to also have some fun. She wants to tame cute squids like her daddy, and Lee's just surprised at her behaving this way, and tells her to come along. He explains how they cannot tame these monsters though since they have no physical form, besides the den's king. Look at these copy-paste looking ass monsters, and White's excited to hear that if she can tame any, she's gonna get an allowance from Lee. She flies in and Lee faces the den's king.